Hey guys, tonight we step into a world far removed from your cozy blanket and pillow. Imagine the air damp and heavy, the faint flicker of torchlight barely cutting through the darkness. You're not strolling through a park or scrolling on your phone. You're trudging into the narrow, choking tunnels of an ancient mine. The walls press in around you, the ground slick with moisture, and every sound seems magnified, the clink of iron on stone, the ragged breath of men beside you. And here's the blunt truth. You probably wouldn't last a day down here. Between the stifling air, the collapsing tunnels, and the brutal overseers, it's the kind of place that makes modern office stress look like a spa retreat. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe. Turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forward, the ceiling low enough that you have to stoop. The torch sputters, smoke curling into your nose, mixing with the damp mineral smell. You're part of a line of exhausted figures, each clutching a crude pickaxe. The miners. Ahead of you move slowly, rhythmically, like machines that never got the memo they were human. Their bare backs glisten with sweat despite the cool underground air. Each strike of metal on stone echoes like a hammer inside your skull. The truth is, ancient mines were not places of progress. They were pits of despair. Salt, silver, gold, copper. Doesn't matter. Once you went in, odds were you weren't coming out alive. Some mines were dug so deep that daylight never touched them. Workers could go months without seeing the sun, their skin turning pale, eyes straining against the shadows. Your foot slips on loose gravel, and for a moment you imagine what would happen if the tunnel caved in. Just a muffled crack, then silence, then tons of rock pressing down. No rescue team, no bright orange helmets, no canary in a cage singing warnings, just darkness forever. You think of modern basements and chuckle. People complain about a little mold smell, but down here, the air itself feels like it wants to crush your lungs. A voice shouts, an overseer. His whip snaps against stone, a cruel reminder that no one sets their own pace here. You swing your pickaxe, feeling vibrations rattle up your arm, muscles screaming in protest. The rock yields reluctantly, chips flying like angry sparks. Some workers collapse outright, too weak to stand. They're dragged out, but not to safety, just deeper into the system to be forgotten. Here's the kicker. The Romans were especially notorious for their mines in Spain and the Balkans. Prisoners of war and criminals ended up here, condemned to what historians call damnatio ad metallo, literally condemnation to the mines. Sounds like a grim video game title, but it was real punishment. Death was faster than justice, and that's saying something. You pause to catch your breath, leaning against the jagged wall. The surface is rough, scraping your palm. Dust clings to your tongue, gritty as sandpaper. You think of drinking water, clear and cold, maybe from a plastic bottle. The idea feels absurdly luxurious compared to the brackish trickle miners had. There's a sound, deep, groaning, the kind of sound that makes your skin crawl before your brain catches up. The ceiling shudders. You press yourself flat to the wall, heart thudding in your chest. A shower of pebbles rains down, stinging your scalp. For a second, you imagine your name etched in some forgotten tablet. Anonymous miner, crushed by the earth he tried to conquer. Not exactly the legacy you'd brag about. Some historians still argue whether slaves, free laborers, or criminals made up the majority of these miners. Records are vague, and accounts contradict one another. But the one constant? Nobody came here by choice. Whether chained or free, the mine erased individuality. Down here you were only a body, a pair of lungs, a pickaxe that could swing until it couldn't. You move again, muscles trembling. A fellow worker beside you, ribs showing through his chest, coughs violently. He spits, and the glob shines black under the torchlight. Coal dust or maybe blood. You don't ask. Some things are better left unspoken. And yet there's something eerily steady about the rhythm. Pick, swing, crack. Pick, swing, crack. Almost like a heartbeat. Almost like the earth itself is alive, pulsing with each strike. You catch yourself imagining the rock, sighing in annoyance. "Stop poking me, humans. Go back to inventing sandals." But the overseer's whip snaps again, cutting the thought short. Humor doesn't last long in places like this. Still, you smirk at the idea that somewhere thousands of years later, people would spend hours mining in video games, except instead of risking death, they're just worried about pixelated durability bars. If only the ancients could have swapped places. Your torch dims, wax dripping onto your hand. You adjust your grip and push forward, deeper. The tunnel bends, narrowing until your shoulders scrape the sides. Sweat runs down your spine, making your tunic cling like wet cloth. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets, until only the sound of your breath and the occasional drip of water remind you that time is still moving. A gust of cold air brushes your face, and you wonder where it comes from. Maybe another shaft, maybe just the earth breathing. You almost laugh. If the mine has lungs, you're just crawling around inside its ribcage. Not the most comforting thought for bedtime, but it does have a strange poetry. Someone mutters a prayer in the darkness. Another curses under their breath. Belief and despair blend seamlessly down here. After all, when you live in a hole carved into the planet, every sound could be a warning, every tremor a prelude to burial. As you keep working, a flicker of defiance sneaks into your chest. Strange, isn't it? Even surrounded by endless rock under crushing rules, humans still dream of freedom. That tiny ember of rebellion, quiet, almost invisible, is what carried some through the longest shifts. Of course, others never made it out. You wipe your brow, smearing dust into your eyes. They sting, watering, but you keep moving. Because, in the mine, stopping means becoming part of the walls themselves. You swing again, your body now part of the rhythm. Pick, swing, crack. The tunnel breathes and you breathe with it, and so you continue deeper into the brutal heart of the earth, where history left no comfort, only the echo of those who labored until the stone itself swallowed them whole. The darkness thickens as you climb out of the mine tunnels and into a new landscape, one no less punishing. The sun hits your skin like a hammer, not the gentle warmth you feel on a stroll, but a relentless blaze that seems to peel the layers off your back. Before you stretches an endless white plain, a salt pan. It looks almost beautiful at first, glittering like snow under the midday light. But as you step onto it, the illusion vanishes. The glare burns your eyes, the air tastes metallic, and every breath feels parched before it even reaches your lungs. You bend low with a crude rake in hand, scraping at the crusted surface. Salt flakes crackle like brittle glass, breaking away into jagged shards. Your hands are raw, small cuts stinging as the salt seeps into them. Imagine spilling lemon juice on a paper cut. Multiply that by 1,000 and you'll get close. There's no shade here, no cool breeze, only the sun bouncing back up from the ground, doubling the heat. Salt wasn't just seasoning in the ancient world, it was wealth. Survival, even called white gold. Empires rose and crumbled over it. Soldiers were sometimes paid in salt rations, which is actually where the word salary comes from. But no one mentions the backs bent to harvest it. The people like you scraping under a fireball sky, skin cracking and eyes watering. The ground crunches underfoot, each step sending sharp crystals grinding into the soles of your sandals. Sweat rolls down your temples, only to dry instantly, leaving crusts of salt on your skin like unwanted glitter. You could almost joke that ancient harvesters invented the worst skincare routine ever, exfoliation with razor-sharp crystals, followed by dehydration. 10 out of 10 dermatologists would not recommend. You pause, arching your back, staring at the mirage that wavers on the horizon. It looks like a pool of water, cool and inviting. You know better, but your body doesn't care. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, and even the thought of water feels like a cruel prank. The irony is, you're surrounded by something humans crave, salt. But without water to balance it, it's a slow poison. The overseer walks past, his shadow briefly breaking the blinding glare. He shouts orders and his voice cracks like a whip. You rake faster, the crystals scraping together with a sound like crushed glass. A fellow harvester nearby stumbles, his knees buckling. He falls face first into the salt, skin tearing on the hard crust. No one rushes to help. Everyone knows what happens when you stop. The line just keeps moving, rakes dragging, backs bending. There's a strange smell, sharp and metallic. Your nose itches, But scratching only grinds salt deeper into your skin. The sun climbs higher, and your vision swims. Some ancient accounts tell of workers collapsing only to be left behind, their bodies eventually blending into the very salt they harvested. Morbid recycling, you might call it. Historians still debate how many were slaves, prisoners, or desperate free laborers. But they agree on one point. Conditions were brutal, and mortality rates were staggering. You crouch, scooping up a handful of coarse salt, letting it run between your fingers. It sparkles, dazzling against the sky. Funny, isn't it? Centuries later, people would toss this stuff casually on fries. You can't help but smirk at the thought. All this agony, all this heat. And someday a kid in a fast food joint will complain there's too much salt on their nuggets. Perspective is everything. A gust of wind lifts, carrying fine particles into your nose and throat. You cough, chest tightening, lungs scouring with each breath. There's no escape. Salt is in your skin, your clothes, your mouth, your eyes. Even the wind here betrays you. You wipe your brow, but the sweat only spreads more sting. You start to feel like your body is being slowly pickled alive. The line of workers stretches endlessly, dots against the blinding field. You hear muttered prayers, curses, a song whispered under someone's breath. Even in misery, people cling to rhythm. Maybe it helps pass the time, or maybe it's the only thing left to control. The sun begins to sink, but the heat lingers, trapped in the crystalline ground. Your muscles ache, your back screams, and yet you keep raking. Because stopping is worse. Because survival here means moving one grain at a time, even as your skin burns and your throat pleads for water. As twilight approaches, the salt glows orange under the dying sun, like fire trapped in the earth. You glance around, vision hazy, and realize you've become part of this shimmering prison. Another figure lost in a sea of white gold. And so you carry on. A shadow etched into the blazing salt flats, where sweat turns to crystals, and every breath reminds you that not all treasures are meant to be touched. The salt flats fade behind you, but relief never really arrives. Instead, you step into a narrow street lined with low, crooked buildings. The air is thick, heavy, and before you even see the source, the smell hits. It's not a mild odor you can wrinkle your nose at. It's a wall, a living thing that climbs into your nostrils and refuses to leave. The stench of rotting flesh, animal hides, and something far worse, human waste. Welcome to the tannery. You clutch your stomach, already queasy. Tanners were the backbone of leather production, and leather meant everything: shoes, armor, belts, saddles, even containers. But the price of that durability was suffering you can taste in the back of your throat. Ancient methods weren't polite or clean. They soaked animal hides in urine and dung to loosen hair, then dunked them into vats filled with foul mixtures to soften and preserve the leather. And yes, you're right, those vats reek exactly how you're imagining. You step closer, gagging. Men stand barefoot in knee-deep pits, stomping hides the way people later stomped grapes for wine. The difference? Instead of sweet juice, the liquid around their legs bubbles with fermented filth. Their skin is raw, eaten away by constant exposure. Cuts on their feet burn like open flames. You watch one man scratch absently at his leg, and strips of skin peel away, red and angry underneath. You quickly look away, your stomach threatening rebellion. A tanner lifts a hide out of a pit, slaps it against a wooden beam, and scrapes fur off with a curved blade. The sound is wet, gritty, like someone sharpening a knife on raw meat. You fight the urge to step back, but curiosity holds you. This is what civilization smelled like. Every city needed tanners, but no one wanted them nearby. In fact, most tanneries were shoved to the edges of towns or downstream, where the waste could flow away. Out of sight, out of nose, at least for everyone else. Your eyes water as fumes rise, stinging your throat. You think about modern complaints, a neighbor grilling too often, a factory belching smoke. Here the complaint would have been constant and unavoidable. And yet, strangely enough, these workers were tolerated because they provided something essential. Civilization runs on contradiction. People loathed tanners but relied on them, a cruel sort of job security, if you will. One worker smiles grimly at you, teeth-stained, eyes red-rimmed from the fumes. He tosses a half-scraped hide over his shoulder and mutters something. You don't catch the words, but the tone is clear. Misery has its own language, and you're already fluent enough to understand. You shuffle past a row of drying hides, stretched taut on wooden frames. They flap in the breeze like grotesque sails, each one whispering of the animal it once covered. You reach out to touch, but the texture is greasy, slimy, and you pull your hand back quickly, wiping it against your tunic. The smell clings, of course, it always does. Historians note that tanners carried the stench everywhere, so much so that some cities banned them from public spaces during festivals. Imagine being told, sorry, you and your smell can't come to the party, and yet there's something almost admirable here. These people weren't warriors or kings, but their work endured longer than most battles. The leather they made held armies together, kept travelers alive, and bound books that outlasted empires. You can almost laugh at the irony. The stink that drove people away gave rise to goods that people treasured. You lean against a wall, but regret it instantly. The plaster is stained with splashes from the vats, and now your sleeve carries a permanent reminder. You sigh. Modern laundry detergent ads would never dare tackle this kind of mess. A fly buzzes near your ear, then another. Soon there's a swarm drawn to the pits. You wave your hand, but it's pointless. The tannery belongs to them, as much as to the men inside. The buzzing mixes with the scraping, the stomping, the splashing. It's a symphony of disgust. Some ancient texts even mention that tanners often worked until their bodies broke down completely. Lungs corroded by fumes, skin eaten by chemicals. But here's the odd detail. Some communities considered their job so dishonorable that tanners couldn't even testify in court. You could scrape hides all day, but if you saw a crime, your word didn't matter. Talk about adding insult to injury. Historians still debate whether this was universal or only in certain regions. But the consensus is clear. Tanners lived at the bottom, even while they built up everyone else's lives. You catch yourself chuckling softly. Imagine explaining this to someone today. Yes, I make leather shoes, but first I bathe them in poop water. It's the kind of job posting no one would swipe right on. And yet without them, no sandals, no saddles, no belts. Civilization would have limped along barefoot. The sun dips low, casting long shadows. The smell doesn't fade with the light. It thickens, settling like a blanket you can't shake off. You breathe shallowly, but it doesn't help. It clings to your hair, your skin, your very memory. You know that even when you leave, the tannery will follow, and so you keep walking through the stench and the filth, where men stomp hides in foul pits, cursed by neighbors yet necessary to the world. In this place, brutality isn't a sudden strike. It's a slow, endless soak, eating at body and dignity alike. The stench of the tannery lingers in your clothes even as you leave it behind, but the air ahead grows colder. A square opens before you, wide and silent, though you can almost hear the echo of 1,000 screams that once filled it. At the center stands a block of weathered wood, stained dark by countless years of use. Beside it leans an axe, its blade glinting in the waning light. You feel a chill. This is not just any tool, but the emblem of one of the most brutal jobs of all, the executioner. You step closer, and the weight of history presses down heavier than any iron chain. To be an executioner wasn't simply to wield an axe. It was to live in a paradox, both feared and needed, despised yet indispensable. Cities couldn't function without them, but no one wanted to sit beside them in church or shake their hand in the market. Imagine being essential to society, but treated like a walking curse. It's a career path LinkedIn would politely suggest you update. Your fingers brush the axe handle. It's rough, worn smooth in patches where palms once gripped it tight. You picture yourself raising it high, the crowd before you buzzing, a man or woman kneeling just a few feet away. The burden isn't only physical, it's moral, spiritual. A swing of the blade separates not just flesh, but one life from the world forever. That's not the kind of stress a meditation app can fix. And yet, executioners weren't always villains. Some saw themselves as performing justice, even mercy. A clean cut was quicker than torture or slow disease. But here's the strange part. Records suggest many botched it. An unsteady hand, a dull blade, a nervous arm. Suddenly the job turned from swift punishment into drawn-out horror. Some executioners even practiced on animals, or on blocks of meat to perfect their swing. Chop once, chop right could have been their motto. The crowd looms in your imagination, packed shoulder to shoulder, hungry for spectacle. Execution days were public holidays in some towns. Children sat on shoulders, vendors sold snacks, and gossip swirled like smoke. You stand at the center of it all, the unwilling entertainer. Execution wasn't just about justice, it was theater. People wanted drama, blood, and closure. If you faltered, you risked not just shame, but their anger. You chuckle bitterly. Modern audiences complain if a movie drags, or a show finale disappoints. Imagine an audience furious, because your axe swing wasn't cinematic enough. Talk about bad reviews. You look again at the block, its surface carved with faint grooves as if the wood itself remembers. There's an odd fact here. In some regions, executioners also doubled as torturers, surgeons, or even butchers. Their skill with blades carried over, though the reputation never softened. Families sometimes passed the profession down, generation to generation, a grim inheritance no one envied. A crow lands on the block, cawing once before hopping away. It's a reminder that death always attracts scavengers, whether feathered or human. You shift uneasily. Some historians still argue whether executioners were hated because of their work, or because people feared what their presence represented, a mirror of mortality walking among them. Either way, their lives were marked by isolation. Some towns forced them to live outside city walls, as if the taint could be contained. And yet executioners had odd privileges too. In some places, they were allowed to take goods from the condemned, or claim certain rights denied to ordinary citizens. Death was their business, and business had its perks. Still, you can't help but imagine the loneliness. To walk through a market and feel people edge away, to hear children whisper behind your back, to hold power yet never be welcome. Your hands tighten on the axe and you shiver. The wood feels heavier now, as if it remembers every swing. You picture the crowd again, their cheers and jeers, the final moments of those who knelt here. The burden isn't only about killing, it's about carrying everyone's fear. You breathe in slowly, letting the chill sink deeper. You can almost hear the last words of those condemned, the prayers, the curses, the silence of resignation. Some fought until the end, others accepted it with eerie calm. You wonder what it would feel like to meet someone's eyes, knowing you'd be the last face they'd ever see. And just as the thought sinks in, you smirk. Imagine clocking out after work. How was your day, dear? Oh, you know. Busy morning, cut off 3 heads, long lunch break, back to work. Not exactly dinner table conversation. The square grows darker, the axe still gleaming in your grip. You set it back against the block, stepping away, the echoes of countless executions still vibrating through the air. Here, brutality wasn't hidden. It was performed. And the executioner, half villain, half necessary evil, carried the weight of every swing long after the crowd went home. The square dissolves into mist, and before you know it, your boots sink into soft, sucking ground. The air is damp, cool, and buzzing with life, or maybe with something far less pleasant. You brush aside reeds taller than your head, and suddenly you realize where you are, a swamp. Mud clings to your ankles, water seeps into your shoes, and the buzzing grows louder. This is the workplace of another forgotten laborer, one who doesn't swing axes or rake salt, but who still suffers in silence. Tonight, you are the leech collector. You take a tentative step into the murky shallows, and within seconds, the water ripples around your legs. At first it seems harmless, just cool and sticky, but then you feel it, a faint prick like a tiny needle. Then another, and another. You look down and your stomach flips. Black wriggling shapes cling to your calves, swollen as they feed on your blood. The leeches have found their dinner, and unfortunately you are it. Back then, leeches weren't pests, they were currency. Medicine relied heavily on bloodletting, the belief that sickness came from an imbalance of humors in the body. And what better tool than a little parasite eager to drain you dry? Doctors paid for jars of the creatures, so collectors waded into swamps, standing still until their bodies became bait. The more blood you lost, the more money you earned. It's a business model that makes you shake your head. Imagine explaining that to your boss. Yes, I'm late, but don't worry. I brought 20 new vampires clinging to my legs. You wince as a leech wriggles higher, clamping onto the back of your knee. Its slimy body swells with each heartbeat, turning from sleek to bloated. You try to brush it off, but the suction holds fast. A worker beside you mutters advice. Don't pull too hard or the teeth will stay behind and fester. Instead, sprinkle some ash, salt, or even a lit match to loosen their grip. You laugh grimly. After the salt flats, you're not eager to carry any more crystals on your skin. The water is cold, but sweat still beads on your forehead. You feel weaker with every minute, the leeches drinking silently. Collectors often worked in pairs, not for companionship, but because fainting was common. Lose too much blood and you'd pass out right into the swamp. Some never stood up again. Historians still debate whether these workers were mainly women and children, as some records suggest, or if it was just whoever was desperate enough to risk their veins for coin. Either way, it wasn't a career path you'd brag about on family gatherings. You catch sight of a jar floating nearby, half full of squirming creatures. The sight alone makes your skin crawl. Yet those wriggling shapes represented medicine, wealth, even life. Doctors prescribed leeches for everything from fevers to headaches, from infections to obesity. If you had a problem, someone somewhere thought leeches could fix it. It's almost comical. You stub your toe and instead of ice, they slap a leech on it. Problem solved, or not. One collector beside you lifts her skirt, showing dozens of fresh bites up her legs. The wounds ooze steadily, tiny crimson beads dotting pale skin. She doesn't even flinch. It's just another day. You wonder how many scars her body holds, invisible proof of countless hours sacrificed. The swamp isn't kind. Aside from leeches, there are snakes, mosquitoes, sharp reeds ready to slice, and all for jars of slimy black worms. You lean on a staff trying to stay upright, but dizziness tickles at the edges of your vision. Your pulse feels slower, heavier. The leeches have had their fill, but you still need more to fill the doctor's orders. You sigh, staring into the brown water. The reflection looking back at you is pale, hollow-eyed, drained, not just of blood, but of spirit. And here's the twist. Leech collecting didn't vanish with the ancients. Even into the 19th century, people waded through swamps in exactly this way, providing hospitals with thousands of jars each year. Some surgeons still use leeches today, especially in delicate surgeries where they can stimulate blood flow. So in a strange sense, the collector's misery still echoes in modern hospitals. You almost laugh. Humans invented machines, computers, even space travel. But when it comes to blood, sometimes we still call on the worm. You brush another leech off your wrist, flicking it into the jar. Its bloated body smacks against the glass, joining the writhing mass inside. The jar feels heavier in your hand, not just with weight, but with the thought of how many veins, how much pain went into filling it. A faint breeze stirs the reeds, and for a moment, the swamp grows quiet. You imagine leaving, drying your clothes, bandaging your legs, but tomorrow and the day after, and the week after, you'd be back, wading into the same mire, offering yourself up to be fed on again and again. And so you stand here, trembling slightly, with jars of living medicine squirming at your side, a collector in the swamp, drained but alive, trading your lifeblood for survival in a world that measured health by the bite of a leech. The swamp fades, and with it the wet sucking of leeches. But the air that greets you now is somehow worse, thicker, heavier, and so pungent that your stomach lurches before you even see the source. You're standing on the edge of a medieval town at night, lantern light flickering against crooked timbered walls. The streets are quiet, most people tucked away in their beds, but not you. Tonight you've taken on a job few dared claim. You are a gong farmer. You shuffle toward a wooden door set low into the ground. When you open it, the smell hits you like a physical blow. It isn't the sharp reek of the tannery or the iron tang of the mines, it's worse. Pure human waste, piled deep in cesspits beneath homes and inns, marinating for months, sometimes years. Your lungs seize and you cough hard, but coughing only drags more of the stench into your throat. Imagine every porta potty you've ever avoided, multiplied by 10 and then left out in the summer sun. That's your work environment. With a long-handled shovel in hand, you descend into the pit. The muck squelches around your boots, thick and sucking, threatening to pull you under. You bite back a gag. This is what civilization leaves behind. The unglamorous proof of every feast, every ale, every loaf of bread. No king or knight can escape it. Everyone makes waste, but someone has to deal with it. And in the medieval world, that someone is you. You thrust the shovel into the pit, heaving the contents into a wooden bucket. The liquid sloshes over the sides, splattering your tunic. You grimace but keep going. Buckets fill, and assistants haul them up, carting them through the sleeping streets to dump outside the city walls. The work is slow, endless, and carried out in silence. No one wants to hear the details, but they all want it done. Here's a fun fact. Gong was the polite medieval word for dung. So technically, you're not just a farmer of filth, you're cultivating the one crop that never fails. Your harvest grows daily, and it doesn't need sunshine or rain. If anything, it's overabundant. You chuckle weakly at the thought, then gag again as a fresh bucket sloshes near your face. Your skin itches constantly. The waste burns small cuts on your arms and legs, leaving angry welts. Infection is common, disease inevitable. Many gong farmers didn't live long. their bodies breaking down from constant exposure. And yet, oddly enough, they were better paid than most laborers. Dangerous, disgusting, but lucrative. A paradox only history could invent. Society despised you, but your work was essential. As you pause to catch your breath, a rat scurries across the pit, its eyes glowing in the lamplight. You shudder. Rats thrive here, fattened on scraps. And with rats comes plague. Gong farmers often brushed shoulders with pestilence long before the rest of the city. You wonder if some of them knew what was coming, even before the bells tolled. Some historians debate whether Gong farmers were forced into the job or volunteered for the higher pay. The truth is likely a mix. Desperation drives strange choices, after all. And when the alternative is starvation, a full purse, however filthy, looks tempting. Still, the price wasn't just dignity. It was your health, your very life expectancy. You climb out of the pit, lungs aching from the fumes. The bucket line continues, a grim parade through the shadows. The streets glisten where spills stain the cobbles, and you imagine the first unlucky person to step barefoot here in the morning. You almost laugh. It's a dark joke, but this job makes gallows humor a survival tool. And here's the kicker. Some Gong farmers were forbidden to work during daylight, to keep the stench from offending respectable townsfolk. So their entire lives played out in the dark, unseen, uncelebrated, ghosts of their own cities, moving filth so others could live in comfort. You lean against your shovel, exhausted. The night air should be fresh, but the smell clings to your hair, your skin, your very soul. You know it won't wash off easily. Neighbors might sniff you out tomorrow, wrinkle their noses and step away. You're needed, yes, but never welcome. And so you keep digging, hauling, dumping. A silent laborer in the shadows, the unsung cleaner of civilization's mess. The Gong farmer, reviled yet essential, living proof that history's dirtiest jobs were often the ones that kept the world turning. The night streets blur and fade, and suddenly you're standing in the scorching daylight again. But this time, the ground beneath your feet is not salt or mud, it's sand, stretching endlessly in golden waves. On the horizon, an enormous stone shape towers against the blue sky, a pyramid under construction, the very symbol of ancient Egypt, majestic and eternal. Yet as you squint closer, you see the truth. This monument is not just stone. It is sweat, pain, and the lives of countless workers like you. A rope is shoved into your hands. It's thick and rough, scratching your palms. You look up and your breath catches. Before you lies a limestone block the size of a small car, heavy enough to crush you without effort. You're part of a team, lines of men straining against the rope. Whips crack, voices shout, and the command comes, pull. You lean forward, muscles screaming, the rope digging deep into your shoulders. The block inches forward across wooden sledges, sand groaning beneath it. Progress measured in the width of a footstep. Contrary to popular imagination, not all pyramid builders were slaves. Many were seasonal laborers, farmers working off their tax during the Nile's flood months, when fields were underwater and idle. But not slaves doesn't mean easy life. The work was relentless under a sun that scorched skin like fire. Imagine hauling concrete in 110-degree heat with no sunscreen, unless, of course, you count the crocodile dung concoctions some Egyptians supposedly smeared as primitive sunblock. You smirk. SPF Crocodile number 30. Probably not a bestseller today. You wipe sweat from your brow only to find more pouring instantly. The air shimmers. The block scrapes forward a little more, and the overseer shouts approval. But there's no pause. Another heave, another groan. Behind you others collapse, too dehydrated to rise. Water skins are passed around sparingly, but most of the time thirst gnaws at your throat like a wild animal. And yet, these workers weren't entirely neglected. Excavations show they lived in surprisingly organized camps, with bread ovens, fish bones, even beer jugs scattered about. Yes, beer, thick, porridge-like filling. A worker's daily ration might include several liters. The thought makes you chuckle. Instead of coffee breaks, pyramid builders took beer breaks. A tipsy workforce building one of the 7 wonders. No wonder some stones don't quite line up. You pause at the base of the rising pyramid, craning your neck. The structure looms impossibly tall. How could humans, with nothing but ropes, sledges, and sheer determination, drag millions of blocks into place? Scholars still argue, ramps, levers, spiral systems, but no one can agree completely. The pyramid itself keeps the secret, as if mocking every historian who guesses. A gust of wind lifts sand into your eyes, scratching like tiny blades. You blink furiously, but the grit stays, rubbing raw with each glance. Around you, men cough, their throats raw from inhaling dust. The air itself feels like stone ground into powder, seeping into lungs, building monuments inside bodies as surely as outside. And still, the work continues. Pull, heave, shout, groan. Day after day, season after season. Workers lived and died here, their bones mingling with the sand. Some were buried near the very monuments they built, not as honored architects but as part of the anonymous workforce. It's a strange sort of immortality, forever tied to a wonder but never named in its glory. You smirk again. Tourists today pose for selfies with pyramids in the background, sipping bottled water and fanning themselves dramatically. If only they knew. The original builders would probably roll their eyes and mutter, "Try dragging a 20-ton block, then we'll talk about the heat." The sun begins to set, casting the pyramid in a golden glow. For a brief moment, the back-breaking labor transforms into majesty. The lines of stone seem to touch the heavens, and you almost forget the agony of the day. Almost. But then the whip cracks again and reality returns. The block must move, the monument must rise, and your body must endure. Because here, under the Egyptian sun, the pyramid is not just stone, it is you. Your sweat, your pain, your fleeting life pressed into eternity, one block at a time. The golden sand dissolves beneath your feet, and the blazing sun is replaced by the roar of thousands of voices. You stand in the heart of an arena, its stone walls towering above, packed with people. The heat is still there, but this time it radiates from bodies pressed together, from the torches blazing, from the anticipation in the air. You look down and realize you're no longer dragging stones. You're gripping a wooden sword, the weapon of a trainee. Welcome to the brutal world of the Roman gladiator. You shuffle forward onto the dusty ground of the training yard. The sand is coarse, kicked up with every step, sticking to your sweat. Around you, men drill relentlessly, thrust, parry, block. The clang of wood on wood echoes, punctuated by the barked commands of the lanista, the gladiator trainer. He strides among the fighters like a conductor at a deadly symphony, whip in hand, ready to correct mistakes not with gentle feedback, but with pain. You quickly learn that here progress is measured in bruises. Gladiators weren't all the same. Some were slaves captured in war, others criminals condemned to fight, and a surprising few actually volunteered, lured by the promise of fame, wealth, or simply 3 meals a day. But no matter how you arrived, once inside the ludus, the gladiator school, your life was no longer your own. You ate, slept, trained, and bled to the rhythm of combat. The promise of glory was always paired with the shadow of death. The crowd in your imagination grows louder. You can almost hear them chant, "Yugula, Yugula," and demanding blood. Their cheers are intoxicating, but they're also terrifying. In the arena, you are not a person. You are entertainment. The sand beneath your feet has soaked up so much blood over centuries that it might as well be red permanently. Historians even note that some arenas mixed fresh sand constantly, not to make it cleaner, but to cover the gore from the last match. You grip the sword tighter. Sweat drips into your eyes, stinging. Your opponent across the yard lunges, wood slamming into your ribs. The air rushes out of your lungs and you double over, gasping. The trainer shouts at you to stand, to fight, to stop embarrassing yourself. You stagger upright, forcing your body to move again. In this place, weakness is unforgivable. And here's the twist. Gladiators, for all their suffering, were sometimes celebrities. Murals, graffiti, even children's toys celebrated them. Women supposedly swooned over the scars of fighters, finding in them a strange, dangerous allure. You almost laugh at the thought. Modern athletes complain about Twitter trolls, but at least no one demands they stab someone to prove their skill. Still, the reality was harsh. Most gladiators didn't live long, and those who did carried broken bodies. Bones shattered, eyes lost, scars layered upon scars. Even the victors walked away limping, the famous thumbs up or down signal that we all picture. Historians still debate what it actually meant. Some think thumbs down indicated mercy, others the opposite. The truth is, we don't know for sure. What we do know is that the crowd loved drama, and mercy was the rarer choice. You take another blow, this time to your shoulder. Pain shoots down your arm, but you keep moving. If you fall, the lanista's whip will sting worse than the strike. You press forward, thrusting clumsily, catching your opponent off guard. For a brief moment, the trainer nods, a flicker of approval, as small as a drop of water in the desert. At night, you collapse onto a straw mat in the barracks, muscles trembling, body bruised. Around you, the others do the same. Some whisper prayers, others laugh bitterly. One hums a tune under his breath. You lie awake, staring at the wooden ceiling beams. Tomorrow will bring more drills, more blows, more exhaustion. And maybe one day the arena itself, where the choice between survival and spectacle will be decided by your blade, or the crowd's mood. You smirk softly. Imagine pitching this job today. Free food and housing, great exercise program, chance to be famous. Small catch, you might be fed to a lion. Somehow it wouldn't make the job boards. The roar of the crowd echoes again in your ears, louder this time, as though the arena itself is alive, hungering for blood. And you realize the truth. As a gladiator, your life isn't your own. You are a weapon, a story, a fleeting thrill for thousands. And when the sand drinks your blood, the cheers will go on without you. The roar of the Colosseum fades, but another kind of roar takes its place. The crash of waves against a wooden hull, the creak of timbers groaning under strain. You blink, and suddenly you're not on sand anymore, but deep inside the belly of a ship. It's dim, cramped, the air heavy with sweat, salt, and something sourer still, despair. You look down and see chains clasped around your ankles. Welcome aboard the galley. You're a rower now. The benches stretch in long rows packed tight, each seat worn smooth by endless bodies before yours. The oar is shoved into your hands, thick, rough, far heavier than you expect. You brace your feet against the plank in front of you, and when the drum begins to beat, you pull. Once, twice again. The rhythm is relentless, like the heartbeat of the ship itself. Miss a stroke, and you'll feel the lash across your back before you can apologize. It doesn't matter if you're sick or weak or exhausted. The oars must move, and you must move them. Some rowers were convicts, chained as punishment. Others were prisoners of war, dragged from their homes to power fleets. A few might have been desperate freemen, but once seated here, everyone became the same. A piece of muscle strapped to wood and iron. The sea air doesn't reach this far below deck. Instead, the air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, the sour stink of sweat, and the sharp tang of salt water seeping through cracks. Breathing feels like inhaling through a wet rag. You hear coughing, groaning, muttered prayers, the slap of water against the hull. Somewhere a man faints, his head lolling forward. No one stops. The oar beside him simply dips out of rhythm until someone drags his body away. You smirk bitterly. People today complain about crowded subways or cramped airline seats. Imagine those, but without windows, without food unless tossed at you, and with the small detail that if you don't move your arms, a man with a whip reminds you why you should. Suddenly, legroom on a budget flight doesn't seem so bad. Your hands blister quickly, the wood tearing skin faster than you can toughen. Blood mixes with sweat, staining the handle. Salt water splashes in occasionally, stinging raw wounds like fire. And the drum beats on. Thump, thump, thump. Row, row, row. Not gently down a stream, but into battle or storm or the grave. The worst part isn't the labor, it's the helplessness. You can't see where you're going. You don't know if the ship is bound for battle, for trade, for conquest. All you know is the oar in your hand and the chain at your ankle. Freedom is as distant as the horizon, and you haven't seen that horizon in weeks. Historians still argue how often galleys truly relied on slaves versus paid rowers. Some say volunteers existed, skilled sailors who joined willingly. But the image of chained men rowing under the lash has persisted for centuries, and for good reason, because for many it was real. The Mediterranean empires thrived on their backs, and they paid with shortened lives and broken bodies. The drum quickens, and you pull harder. Muscles scream, lungs burn, but there's no slowing. The ship must surge forward. You feel it in your bones. If you falter, the lash will find you. If you stop altogether, the sea itself will take you, and then, faintly above the pounding rhythm, you hear another sound. Shouts, trumpets, the thud of something heavy striking the deck above. Battle. You exchange glances with the man beside you, his face gaunt, eyes hollow. Neither of you speak, but you both know, whatever happens topside down here, you'll keep rowing until the ship sinks or the order comes. You're not warriors. You're fuel. You can almost laugh at the absurdity. A fleet of mighty warships, celebrated in chronicles sung about by poets. And what drives them? 100 chained men coughing in the dark, rowing in rhythm to a drum that cares nothing for names. The drum beats faster still. You grip the oar tighter, every muscle taut. Water sprays your face, stinging with salt. Around you, the groaning and shouting rise, but the rhythm holds. Thump, thump, thump. The ship lunges forward like a beast unleashed, and you are its lungs, its heart, its chained soul. And so you row on, blind in the belly of history, where survival means surrendering to the rhythm, and freedom is only a dream whispered between strokes. The creaking timbers of the galley fade, replaced by the hollow silence of a windswept field. The air is colder now, damp with a mist that clings to your skin. You look down and see the earth freshly turned, piles of soil stacked like dark hills. A wooden spade rests in your hands, heavier than you expect. And then it dawns on you. You're standing in a graveyard during the plague, and your job is the most thankless of all, the gravedigger. The silence is broken by the toll of a distant bell. Slow, deliberate, each note a reminder that somewhere, someone has just died. You grip the spade tighter, drive it into the soil, and heave. The ground resists, thick with clay, sticky with rain. It clings to the blade, forcing you to wrestle each shovelful free. You bend, lift, toss, over and over until your back aches and your arms feel like lead. Around you, the air is not truly silent. There are muffled sobs from families standing at a distance, priests chanting hurried prayers, and the occasional clatter of a cart bringing more bodies. The stench drifts on the breeze, sickly sweet, unmistakable. It turns your stomach and you breathe shallowly, but the mask you tie across your face does little. Death has a way of seeping through every layer. One by one, they lower the shrouded shapes into the earth. The bodies pile faster than the ground can be dug. In times of plague, entire towns were overwhelmed, the dead far outnumbering the living's ability to bury them. Some records speak of trenches, great pits where dozens were laid together side by side. Historians still debate the exact numbers, how many lives were lost in each wave, but they agree the scale was staggering. Your hands blister as you keep digging, but there's no pause. More carts arrive, more bells toll. You lean on the spade, wiping sweat and grime from your brow, but the relief is fleeting. The overseer shouts, urging you to dig deeper, faster. There is always another body waiting. The work changes you. At first you feel sorrow, each grave a personal loss. But after hours, days, weeks, sorrow dulls into numbness. You can't grieve them all. Instead you fall into rhythm. Dig, lower, cover. A ritual of necessity. Your heart hardens not from cruelty, but from survival. To feel each loss would break you long before the shovel does. You smirk faintly, though it's a bitter kind of humor. People today complain about working night shifts or dealing with endless emails. Imagine your shift being endless pits of mud, your inbox filled with corpses, each one marked urgent. It puts things into perspective, and yet there are moments when the humanity slips through. A child's toy falls from a shroud. A family whispers a name through tears. A mother clutches your arm, begging you to dig carefully. You nod, even though you've long since lost the strength to promise anything. These tiny fragments of love in the middle of death remind you that behind each body is a story, a life lived, a life lost. The mist thickens, wrapping the graveyard in a pale shroud. Your lantern flickers, casting shadows across the rows of mounds. You pause, leaning on the spade, and wonder how long before your body joins them. Gravediggers rarely escape disease. Constant exposure meant many dug their own final resting place without knowing it. Some historians argue whether towns forced criminals or outcasts into this role, or if desperate men volunteered. Either way, the outcome was the same. A job paid in coin today, but often costing your life tomorrow. Your arms tremble as you shovel again, the sound of earth thudding onto a wooden coffin. The noise is dull, final, like a drumbeat ending a song. You whisper a small prayer, though you're not sure if anyone listens anymore. The world feels too full of the dead for prayers to carry. And still the bell tolls. Another cart creaks closer. Another trench waits to be dug. You grip the spade, spine aching, throat raw, and step back into the pit. Because in times like these, the world depends on you. Not for glory, not for thanks, but simply to make room for the endless tide of the fallen. The mist of the graveyard drifts away, and now you find yourself at dusk in a medieval town. The sun has slipped below the rooftops, and the streets are bathed in shadow. Shops close, shutters creak shut, and families huddle inside. But for you, the work is only beginning. In your hand is a long pole with a wick hook on the end, and across your back hangs a small jar of oil. You are a lamplighter, climbing into the darkness one flame at a time. You stand beneath a tall iron lamp, its glass cloudy with soot. Balancing carefully, you raise the pole, your arms trembling as you guide the flame from your lantern to the waiting wick. A spark, a flare, and suddenly the street is bathed in a dim golden glow. One more light, one more star against the night. Then you move on. There are dozens more to go before the town sleeps safely. At first it feels almost magical, bringing fire to the dark, holding back shadows. But the magic vanishes quickly when your foot slips on wet cobblestones, or when the oil spills and scorches your hand. Every night is a test of balance, patience, and endurance. You climb ladders, stretch poles higher than your comfort allows, and pray the flame doesn't gutter out in the wind. One strong gust and all your work unravels. The smell of oil clings to your clothes, heavy and acrid. It seeps into your skin, so no matter how much you wash, you carry the scent of smoke everywhere. People wrinkle their noses as you pass, though not as badly as they do with the tanners or gong farmers. Still, you're marked by your trade, forever smelling faintly of burnt wick and singed hair. You smirk at the thought. People today flip a switch and flood entire streets with light. They grumble if a bulb burns out, or if the power flickers for a few seconds. Imagine explaining your nightly route to them. Yes, I climb 30 poles every evening so you don't trip over a puddle. It would make electricity feel like sorcery, and yet, for all its mundanity, lamplighting was dangerous. Falls from ladders were common. One slip, one rotten rung, and you'd break bones or worse. Fire, too, was a constant threat. Oil could ignite on your clothes, turning your body into the very lamp you tended. There are stories, half legend, half truth, of lamplighters vanishing in sudden blazes, their work ending in the very flames they spread. Still, the job carried a strange dignity. You weren't shoveling waste or digging graves. You were bringing light, safety, even comfort. Thieves were less bold in a lit street. Families slept easier, knowing the glow lingered outside their windows. You were, in your own small way, a guardian. Historians note that in some towns, lamplighters also acted as night watchmen, walking the routes long after the flames were lit, keeping order in the dark. A dual role, half beacon, half guard. Some argue whether this made them respected or just overworked, but the evidence suggests they were at least more tolerated than many other lowly laborers. You pause under another lamp, the pole heavy in your hands. The flame sputters before catching, dancing wildly for a moment before steadying. You exhale in relief. One more corner bathed in light, one less shadow for fear to hide in. The night deepens, stars appearing above. Your body aches from the repetition. Lift, light, lower, move. But the glow spreading behind you feels like progress, like a trail of warmth carved into the cold. You smile faintly despite yourself. It's a simple rhythm, but it matters. Without you, the town would stumble blind. With you, it rests a little easier. And so you keep climbing, keep lighting, until the city is dotted with tiny suns, each one a fragile defense against the dark. The last lantern flickers behind you, and the night sky fades into a pale morning haze. The scent of oil and smoke drifts away, replaced by something drier, sharper. You squint as dust clouds fill your lungs, and the ground beneath your boots crunches with shards. You've stepped into a quarry, where the world's monuments and temples begin as raw stubborn stone. Your new tools, a heavy hammer, an iron chisel, and the patience of someone who knows each swing takes a piece of their life as much as the rock. The quarry yawns before you, a jagged wound in the earth. Sheer walls rise high, dotted with scars where blocks have been cut away. The sun beats down mercilessly, bouncing off pale stone until your eyes ache. You swing the hammer, driving the chisel deep, and the vibration rattles your bones. Chips fly in sharp arcs, stinging your skin. One shard nicks your cheek, another bounces dangerously close to your eye. You quickly realize why so many quarrymen went blind before their time. Stone doesn't forgive carelessness. The sound is constant, hammer striking iron, iron biting stone. A chorus of clangs that echoes against the walls, until it feels like the earth itself is protesting. You pause to wipe the sweat from your brow, but dust immediately coats your skin again. The air is thick with grit, clinging to your tongue, turning every breath into sandpaper. You cough, chest heaving, lungs scratching. This isn't just work, it's slow suffocation. And yet you keep swinging. These blocks will become temples, palaces, tombs. Pharaohs and kings will carve their names into them, pretending eternity belongs to them alone. But you know the truth. Eternity is built on your cracked hands, your bent spine, your wheezing lungs. Historians argue whether quarry workers were slaves, convicts or poorly paid freemen, but all agree the work was brutal, and the workers rarely saw the monuments their labor created. You smirk faintly, though your lips are dry and cracked. People today complain about noisy neighbors with power tools. Imagine living where the soundtrack is hammers and chisels all day, with no ear protection, no lunch break, and the occasional bonus of a collapsing wall. A little suburban drilling suddenly doesn't sound so bad. You grip the hammer tighter, muscles trembling, another swing, another chip, another tremor through your bones. Around you, men groan, wiping blood from fresh cuts, spitting grit from their mouths. The overseer shouts to keep the rhythm, because even stone must obey the pace of labor. Sometimes entire slabs crack wrong, splitting down the middle after weeks of effort. All that work wasted. You watch one block tumble with a sickening crash, sending shards flying like knives. A man screams as his leg is caught beneath, crushed beyond saving. Work stops briefly, but only long enough to drag him aside. The block is measured again, the chisels reset. The quarry does not pause for grief. Oddly, there's a strange beauty here too. The walls gleam in the sunlight, streaked with veins of color, red, white, gold. You run your hand across the rough face of a block, feeling its ancient weight. Somewhere inside this jagged mass is a column, a statue, a slab for a temple floor. You almost imagine the stone whispering, "I will outlast you." And it will. The dust settles briefly, and you take a long breath, though it burns your throat. You chuckle weakly. Modern gyms sell memberships for people to swing hammers at tires for fun. Here you swing until your arms collapse, and the only reward is a block of stone heavier than your body. Perspective once again. The sun climbs higher and the quarry floor glows with heat. Shadows vanish. You keep swinging, keep coughing, keep blinking against the sting in your eyes. Every scar in the rock is mirrored by a scar on your skin. Stand still, you work, because the world demands stone, and stone demands sacrifice. And so you carry on in the dust and the clangor, carving eternity out of rock, one swing at a time, knowing that when the monuments rise above the earth, your body will already be buried beneath it. The quarry's blinding dust fades, and you stumble forward into darkness again. This time the air is thicker, heavier, almost alive with the weight of it. You cough and the sound bounces back at you from unseen walls. A faint lantern flickers ahead, but it doesn't comfort you. It only makes the shadows seem deeper. You realize where you are. Not a stone quarry in the open sun, but a coal mine far underground. And your role isn't to chip rock, but to haul its black burden out of the earth. You are a coal hauler. The tunnel is narrow, low enough that you crouch as you move. Your back aches before you've even begun. A wooden cart waits in the gloom, its wheels already caked in soot, its frame sagging under the weight of coal. You grip the handles, muscles tensing, and push. The cart doesn't budge at first. Then slowly it groans forward, scraping against the rails. Each shove sends tremors through your body. Each breath pulls grit deeper into your lungs. The walls glisten with moisture, but instead of freshness, the air tastes stale, dust mixed with damp, choking and bitter. You swallow, but it only makes the grit stick harder to your throat. Coal dust fills everything. Your nose, your mouth, your eyes, even the sweat dripping down your skin. You wipe your face with a sleeve, but that only smears more black across your cheek. By the end of the shift, you're as dark as the tunnels themselves, no longer sure where the mine ends and your body begins. You hear coughing behind you, deep, rattling, painful. One of the other haulers doubles over, hacking until black flecks spray the ground. You wince. That cough isn't just from today's work. It's from months, years of lungs coated in soot. Black lung, they'll call it centuries later. For you, it's simply the price of breathing down here. Some historians still debate whether ancient coal use was widespread. But wherever it was mined, China, Greece, or later in Europe, the workers suffered the same choking reality. You push the cart again, the wood creaking, the coal shifting like a living beast inside. The weight presses against you, bending your spine, burning your muscles. Every step feels like dragging a mountain, one shovelful at a time. And when you finally reach the shaft and tip the load, the overseer nods once, unimpressed. Then he points back into the tunnel. Another cart waits. Another load must be hauled. You smirk bitterly, imagining the complaints of people today. Wi-Fi went out for 5 minutes. Try explaining that while dragging half a ton of black rock in near darkness, coughing up soot with every breath. At least a dropped internet signal doesn't kill you by 40. The lantern flickers again, casting shadows across jagged walls. You notice cracks in the ceiling, thin lines that shift with each tremor of the earth. Your stomach tightens. Cave-ins are the nightmare everyone whispers about, but no one can stop. One wrong blow, one careless shift, and the ceiling could drop like a guillotine. If it happens, no one will dig fast enough to save you. Down here, the earth doesn't negotiate. The air grows hotter as you push deeper. Sweat trickles down your neck, but the dust dries it instantly, leaving salty streaks across your skin. The tunnel seems endless, twisting, narrowing, always demanding more. The deeper you go, the heavier the silence becomes. Only the creak of your cart and the labored wheeze of your lungs break it, and then faintly you hear singing. A low rhythmic chant from another group of haulers. The words are lost in the echoes, but the tune is steady, almost soothing. It's not joy, it's survival. A way to keep rhythm, to keep moving, to remind each other they're still alive in the dark. You pause briefly, leaning on the cart. Your chest rises and falls, aching with every breath. Coal dust clings to your teeth, turning your spit black. You can almost laugh. Dentists today fuss about cavities. But here the problem is your lungs slowly turning into lumps of charcoal. Not exactly covered by health insurance. Still, you grip the cart again. The work doesn't end until the coal is gone, and the coal is never gone. You shove forward, each step echoing through the suffocating dark, each breath carving another layer of soot into your lungs. And so you carry on, a shadow among shadows, hauling the black heart of the earth to feed fires above, fires that warm homes, forge weapons and light cities, while the miners themselves fade quietly into the dust. The coal dust still clings to your skin when the world around you shifts again. The tunnels vanish, and now you're walking narrow, crooked streets in a medieval town. The houses lean close together, shadows falling across the cobblestones. But you're not here for the scenery. You're here for the scratching, squeaking, scurrying in the gutters. A trap dangles from your hand, and a sack rests heavy on your back. Tonight you're a rat catcher. You pause, listening. The faint patter of tiny feet scurries along the wall. Your eyes adjust, and there it is, a fat, greasy rat darting from a pile of refuse. You lunge, slamming the trap down, and the squeal makes your skin crawl. You lift it carefully, sliding the wriggling creature into your sack. The bag twitches and squirms, alive with movement, and the thought makes your stomach knot. By morning, you'll deliver your haul to officials, or maybe to apothecaries who swear by rat parts as cures. Some people even kept rat catchers' dogs trained to sniff them out. It's grim work, but vital. Rats thrive in the filth of towns, gnawing through grain stores, spreading fleas, chewing everything they find. And those fleas, carriers of plague. Some historians argue whether rats truly caused the Black Death, or if it spread more through lice and human contact. But one thing's certain, rats were the face of fear. Catching them wasn't just pest control. It was survival. You kneel near a barrel, peering into the dark gap beneath it. Two glowing eyes stare back. A hiss, then a dart. The rat leaps, claws scraping your wrist as you grab it. You wrestle it into the sack, grimacing as its tail whips across your arm. Blood wells from shallow scratches, and you know infection is a risk. Rat catchers often carried their own scars and sickness, ironic souvenirs from the job they were hired to prevent. You smirk darkly. People today buy cute little hamsters and gerbils, pampered in cages with water bottles and exercise wheels. You wonder what a medieval rat catcher would say if shown a pet rat with a pink bow on its head. Probably faint or laugh bitterly, depending on how much beer he'd had. The sack squirms again, tails and claws pressing against the cloth. You sling it over your shoulder and keep moving. The stench follows you, musky, sour, unmistakable. Townsfolk wrinkle their noses as you pass, stepping aside quickly. Rat catchers weren't popular, but they were necessary. Much like tanners or gong farmers, you lived on the edge of respectability, despised yet essential. A child peeks from a doorway, wide-eyed. He whispers something to his mother, who quickly pulls him back inside. You know what he's heard? Rumors. Rat catchers sometimes accused of sorcery, of breeding more rats just to stay employed, of carrying curses in their sacks. It wasn't entirely unthinkable. More rats meant more coin. Historians still debate whether some catchers secretly released the pests at night to guarantee tomorrow's work. Survival breeds strange temptations. You stop near the market square. The smell of bread lingers in the air, but even that sweetness can't cover the sour odor of rats. You set your traps in the corners, baited with scraps, and wait. The squeaks grow louder, a chorus hidden in the walls. You glance at the shadows and realize the truth. No matter how many you catch, the rats will always return. They outnumber you, outlast you, outbreed you. It's a war with no end. Your body aches, your hands sting, and the sack grows heavier. Still, you keep moving. Because in this town, one missed night could mean sickness spreading, food spoiled, lives lost. The responsibility weighs on you as much as the sack itself. And so you stalk the alleys, shadows moving against shadows, bag writhing on your back. A hunter in the dark, despised yet vital, you chase an enemy that never sleeps. In the end, the rats will always win, but tonight you win a small fleeting battle. The scratching of claws fades, replaced by a different kind of scratching, quills against parchment. The alley melts away, and now you sit in a cold stone room. The walls are thick, the windows narrow slits that let in almost no light. A single candle flickers beside you, casting a feeble glow over a sheet of vellum stretched taut on a wooden desk. The air is chilly enough to make your fingers stiff. Welcome to the scriptorium, where you are a scribe condemned to hours of silent, painstaking labor. You dip your quill into ink, careful not to spill. The liquid glistens black, thick, and sticky. You press it to the page, forming the first curve of a letter. The parchment resists slightly, rough beneath your hand. You hunch lower, shoulders tight, eyes straining in the dim light. Around you, other scribes do the same. Bent over, breathing softly, the only sound the rhythm of scratching pens and the occasional cough. It seems simple, even peaceful at first. But the strain builds quickly. Your neck aches from bending forward. Your back protests against the hard bench. Your fingers cramp as you grip the quill too tightly, trying to keep each stroke steady. One slip, one blot, and an entire page ruined. Weeks of work wasted because of a single mistake. You mutter under your breath, though the silence here is sacred. The monks glance up sharply, as if even a sigh is too loud. The cold doesn't help. Winter in the monastery means freezing ink pots, stiff joints, numb toes. In summer, the air grows stifling, sweat dripping onto pages that must remain pristine. Either way, comfort never exists. And the pages must be perfect, because these aren't just words. They're scripture, law, knowledge meant to outlast kingdoms. Historians note that a single manuscript could take years to complete. Every line copied by hand, every initial illuminated in painstaking detail. You smirk wryly. People today rage when their printer jams or autocorrect changes duck into something else. Imagine telling them you've spent 3 months copying one book, only for a sneeze to spray ink across the last page. You'd laugh if it didn't feel so tragic. You dip the quill again, hand trembling. The ink blots slightly, spreading where it shouldn't. You groan softly, then carefully scrape the mistake away with a knife. The parchment scars, but it can still be used. It's not perfect, but perfection is a luxury only saints achieve. You sigh, pressing onward. The candle flickers low, smoke curling into your nose. Your eyes water, vision blurring from hours of squinting. Many scribes went blind early, their sight ruined by years of straining in half-light. Some historians still argue whether scribes lived longer than laborers in the fields, protected from weather, yes, but worn down by monotony and poor eyesight. Either way, the toll was real. You glance at the page again. The letters march in neat rows, black on pale skin, each one sharp and exact. It looks beautiful, but you know the cost. Cramped fingers, aching spine, frozen breath in the air. Knowledge doesn't copy itself. It demands flesh and patience. Somewhere in the hall a bell tolls. The other scribe straightens slightly, stretching stiff arms, whispering prayers. Then, without pause, they bend again to their pages. The rhythm resumes. Scratch, 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 the heartbeat of a cloister. You rub your eyes, ink smearing across your skin. A dark stain that will linger for days. Your clothes are already blotched with ink. Your fingertips permanently blackened. It's as if the words themselves tattoo your body. You almost laugh. Modern writers complain of writer's block. Here, your problem isn't the block, it's the endless flood. Copy, 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 until the day your hand can no longer hold a quill. You take a breath, steadying your shaking hand, and continue. Another line, another page, another drop of your life poured into parchment. Because in this cold room, history demands to be written, and you are the one paying its price. The candlelight flickers out, and suddenly you're surrounded not by silence but by a thunderous roar. Stone walls rise around you, and above them hangs a massive bronze bell. Its mouth yawns open like a giant waiting to scream. You grip a thick rope coiled at your feet, the fibers rough and fraying. The floor trembles with each gust of wind, and you realize you've climbed the tower of a medieval church. Tonight you are the bell ringer. The signal is given. You plant your feet, Wrap the rope around your arm and heave. The bell lurches, groaning, then swings with bone-shaking force. The clapper slams against the metal, and the world erupts in sound. The note is so loud it rattles your teeth, vibrates in your skull, and reverberates through your chest like a drum. Your ears ring instantly and you wince, but there's no stopping. The bell must keep moving. You pull again, the rope dragging your palms raw. The bell soars higher, swinging faster, until the entire tower shakes. Dust rains from the beams overhead. The sound grows unbearable, not just loud but physical, waves of noise pounding your bones. You know that bell ringers often went deaf young, their ears battered beyond repair. Some even lost fingers when ropes whipped or slipped, dragging them into the mechanism. You glance down the dizzying shaft of the tower, heart lurching. A fall from here would shatter you on the stones below. And yet, you have to lean back with each pull, throwing your weight against the rope, teetering on the edge of balance. A missed step, a snapped rope, and the bell would take you with it. Outside, the town hears only the noble sound, the call to prayer, the warning of fire, the announcement of weddings or funerals. Inside, you hear the brutal cost, your ears throbbing, your skin burning from rope friction, your muscles screaming with every heave. Historians note that some towers required teams of ringers, coordinating like dancers, to move massive bells without snapping ropes or bones. Imagine a ballet, but each step threatens to deafen or kill you. You smirk through the pain. People today complain about phone notifications being too loud or alarms too shrill. Imagine living inside the alarm itself, dragging it into motion with your bare hands, knowing every chime steals another piece of your hearing. The bell swings harder now, the clapper slamming so violently that the entire tower hums. The sound is glorious, overwhelming, holy, and yet cruel. Each strike drives needles into your ears, a pain that lingers long after the note fades. You feel your heartbeat sync with the rhythm, your body vibrating in tune with the bronze. For a moment, you're not ringing the bell. The bell is ringing you. Sweat stings your eyes, your arms tremble, but you don't stop. The bell must be heard across the town, through fields, into the hills. Your effort is invisible, hidden in the tower's shadow. People hear the bell and think of God, of warnings, of celebration. No one thinks of you. At last the signal comes to stop. You ease the rope slowly, carefully, until the bell settles, groaning back into silence. Your ears still buzz, a high-pitched hum that drowns out the world. You rub your palms, raw and blistered, the smell of burned rope clinging to your skin. The town sleeps easier with the bell's message delivered, but you walk away half-deaf, your bones aching, your body still vibrating with phantom chimes, because in this tower, the bell's voice comes at the cost of your own. The echo of the bell still hums in your ears when the scene shifts again. The stone tower dissolves and suddenly the air is damp, sour and acrid in a way that makes your nose wrinkle instantly. You look down and there it is, a shallow vat filled with liquid that smells unmistakably of ammonia. The surface bubbles faintly, and scraps of cloth float within it. You tug up your tunic nervously, because tonight you are a fuller, and your task is to stomp cloth in urine. You step into the vat barefoot, and the liquid sloshes against your legs. It's warm, disgustingly warm, and the stench rises like a living creature wrapping around you, clinging to your hair and skin. You gag, but you can't step out. Instead, you begin the rhythm. Step, stomp, step, stomp. The cloth tangles around your ankles as you grind it down, softening fibers, cleaning dirt, bleaching stains. Civilization's fashion depends on your feet. The process is endless. Hours pass with nothing but the sound of your soles squelching against fabric. Your skin puckers raw and red. Cuts sting as though someone's poured fire into them. You smirk bitterly. Modern spas sell foot soaks for relaxation. Imagine offering this one. Luxury ammonia bath guaranteed to strip not only dirt but also dignity. 10 out of 10 customers would demand a refund. You bend down, scooping a piece of wool from the vat. It's heavy, waterlogged, the stink so strong you nearly choke. You slap it against a wooden board, scrubbing it clean, then plunge it back under. Over and over your arms ache, your back protests. And yet the work matters. Fullers turned rough cloth into something wearable, durable, and white enough to sell. Without them, the toga of a senator or the robe of a noble would remain a stained rag. Some historians note that fullers also used clay or chalk to finish fabrics, but urine was the cheapest, most reliable option. Cities even collected it in public jars. Yes, people relieved themselves into pots placed on streets, and fullers bought the contents. There's a reason the Roman Emperor Vespasian taxed public urinals and supposedly coined the phrase pecunia non olet. Money doesn't stink. You chuckle weakly. For Fuller's money absolutely stank, and it stuck to their skin. The vat shifts beneath you as another worker steps in. Together you stomp, bodies swaying in a grim dance. The rhythm is steady, but the smell makes your eyes water. Around you, vats stretch in rows, each one bubbling faintly. The entire workshop reeks so strongly that towns often banished fullers to the outskirts alongside tanners and butchers. It seems history liked to keep all its smelliest trades in one convenient neighborhood. You pause to catch your breath, leaning on the edge of the vat. Your legs throb, your feet numb. You imagine the fine citizens strolling past in spotless robes, never once thinking about whose toes softened their fabric. That invisibility is the cruelest part. You exist in their shadows, your labor hidden under layers of cloth. And yet, there's a strange pride here too. You take a piece of finished fabric, wring it out and spread it under the sun. It gleams faintly, clean and bright, the stink masked by open air. For a moment you feel the satisfaction of transformation, from filth to beauty, from waste to worth. A paradox that defines your trade. The sun dips low, but the vats don't empty. Your legs ache as though they no longer belong to you. You climb out at last, skin pruned and reeking, and collapse onto a bench. The smell clings mercilessly. You know you'll carry it into your bed, into your dreams, into tomorrow. Fullers were known by their odor alone. People stepped aside in markets, whispered behind their backs. Yet without them, no city could dress itself in white. And so you return to the vats again and again, stomping cloth in filth, turning waste into wealth. Civilization walks proudly in clean garments, while your feet tell the real story, silent, swollen, and steeped in stink. The stink of the fuller's vat fades, washed away by a sudden rush of salt air. The ground beneath your feet softens into warm sand, and before you lies the glittering expanse of the sea. The sun glares down, dazzling on the waves, but the horizon seems to whisper promises of wealth hidden in its depths. A rough basket rests beside you, and a simple nose clip dangles from your hand. You take a deep breath because tonight you are a pearl diver. You wade into the surf, the water cool against your skin. Then you plunge, cutting through the waves until the light above grows dim. The sea closes around you, muffling the world into a soft, endless hum. You kick hard, muscles straining, lungs burning as you descend toward the dark seabed. The pressure builds in your ears, squeezing like iron bands. Still you go deeper, eyes scanning for the faint shapes of oysters clinging to rocks. Your fingers scrape against a shell, rough and sharp. You pry it loose, shoving it into your basket, then reach for another. Each second stretches longer as your lungs beg for air. Your chest feels like it might burst, but still you grab, because each oyster might hold the gleam of fortune. Of course, most won't. For every pearl, there are hundreds of empty shells, but that doesn't matter. You are paid for the chance, not the certainty. The water darkens further. Shadows flit at the edge of your vision. Fish, perhaps, or something less friendly. Sharks were known to prowl these waters, drawn to the struggling divers. Jellyfish, too, their tentacles burning like fire if they brushed your skin. And yet you keep working because time is short. A diver who hesitates drowns. Your vision sparkles with black spots. Panic claws at you. You kick upward, pushing through the crushing weight until at last you break the surface, gasping, coughing seawater. The basket clatters onto the boat, oysters spilling wet and heavy. Around you, other divers surface one by one, some triumphant, some empty-handed, one frighteningly still until rough hands drag him aboard. You glance once, then look away. Death here is as common as pearls. Historians debate exactly how much ancient divers earned, whether they were slaves forced into the water or free men chasing fortune. But all agree the work was perilous and many never returned. The Persian Gulf, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, all glittered with wealth above and demanded lives below. Some divers stuffed sponges in their ears, tied stones to their waists to sink faster, even pinched their nostrils shut with bone clips. Primitive methods against a merciless sea. You smirk grimly. Today people snorkel with bright fins and oxygen tanks, snapping selfies with clownfish. Back then, you dove with nothing but a lungful of hope and a prayer not to be eaten before you surfaced. No Instagram likes waiting, just another dive, another risk. The boat rocks beneath your feet as you recover, chest still heaving. Your skin stings where sharp shells cut, thin lines of blood mixing with salt. You don't even bother cleaning them. There's no time. the overseer shouts, and you're expected to dive again. The sea is never satisfied with one offering. The sun dips lower, but your body is wrung dry. Your lungs roar from the constant plunge and gasp, plunge and gasp. The oysters pile up, and with them perhaps a pearl. You might never see it yourself. The merchants and nobles will claim the treasure, but you know it was torn from the sea by your hands, your blood, your breath, and so you dive again, slipping beneath the waves into silence, lungs straining, heart hammering, all for the chance that somewhere in the darkness, a small sphere of light waits to be found. The sea swallows you whole, then spits you back out onto dry land. The cool salt water vanishes, replaced by the suffocating heat of iron and leather. Your body feels heavier, weighed down as though you've been wrapped in chains. You glance down and see why. Steel plates gleam dully across your chest and arms. Chainmail clinks with every breath, and a helmet clamps around your skull like a vice. Tonight you march not as a laborer of the fields or pits, but as a medieval knight, though one quickly learns that glory looks better in poems than inside a suit of armor. You shift your weight, and the plates grind together with a metallic groan. Each step feels like hauling a second body on your back. The sun beats down, turning the metal into a slow oven. Sweat runs down your temples, pooling at your neck, soaking the linen shirt beneath. The padding that's supposed to soften the armor's bite instead clings like a wet rag, chafing raw patches into your skin. Around you, other knights mount horses, their beasts snorting under the burden of chain and plate. Trumpets blare, the banners of lords snap in the wind. It looks magnificent. Color, pageantry, the stuff of tapestries. But inside the armor you can barely breathe. Your lungs fight for air through the narrow slits of the visor. Your vision is tunneled, cut to thin slices of the world. One stumble, and you're blind to the strike coming for your side. You smirk bitterly. People imagine knights as glamorous heroes. In truth, they were often walking furnaces, clumsy in mud, vulnerable to heat stroke. Even lifting your sword feels like dragging a tree branch through honey. Knights trained for years, but no amount of training makes 60 pounds of iron feel like silk. The order comes. You lower your visor, and the world becomes a muffled cage. Sound filters in as a dull roar, the clatter of hooves, the crash of shields, the guttural shouts. You grip your lance, point it forward, and dig your heels into your horse's flanks. The beast surges, your body jolting with each pounding stride. The wind cuts through the slits in your helmet, sharp and fleeting, before the first impact lands. The collision is thunderous. Your lance shatters against another knight's shield, the force rattling through your bones. Pain shoots through your shoulder, your arm numb from the blow. You wobble, struggling to stay in the saddle. The crowd cheers somewhere beyond the ringing in your ears. But you don't have time to savor it. Another opponent charges, and you raise your sword this time, bracing for steel on steel. Combat in armor isn't elegant. It's brute force, endless pounding. You swing, miss, block, stumble. Every strike jars your entire frame. Your muscles scream. Your vision blurs from sweat trickling into your eyes. One lucky hit rattles your helmet, and stars explode across your vision. You nearly fall, but sheer instinct keeps you upright. And here's the cruel truth. Knights were trained killers, but they weren't invincible. Heroes found gaps in armor. Heat felled men before swords did. Horses slipped, dragging riders under. Historians argue whether the armor was unbearably heavy or surprisingly manageable, but all agree it was exhausting, and battles were chaos more than choreography. You smirk weakly. Modern gym-goers boast about weighted vests and resistance training. You want to hand them a suit of chainmail and say, "Try running a marathon in this while someone hits you with a hammer." Suddenly, cardio class feels like a holiday. The fight rages, the clang of iron echoing across the field. You stagger, swing, stumble forward again. Each breath rattles in your chest, hot and shallow. Inside your helmet, your own sweat drips down your lips, salty and bitter. There is no fresh air, no pause, no comfort, only the endless rhythm of strike, block, strike. At last, the horn sounds. The melee breaks, knights retreating in ragged groups. You pull off your helmet, gasping as cool air brushes your face. Your hair is plastered to your scalp, your skin raw, your body trembling. The battlefield looks glorious from afar, but inside the armor, you know the truth. Being a knight was less about honor and more about surviving long enough to stagger back to camp. And so you stand there, drenched in sweat, bruised beneath steel, one more soldier in a world that loved the sight of armor, but never cared about the pain it hid. The battlefield fades, and the clash of steel gives way to a different kind of silence. You find yourself once more in a town square. The crowd is gone now, their cheers and jeers carried away like smoke after a storm. What remains is stillness, broken only by the drip of something dark pooling on the wooden platform ahead. The execution has ended, but your work is only beginning. Tonight you are not the executioner, but the one left behind, the witness and the cleaner. You step closer to the scaffold. The block still sits at the center, its surface darkened, sticky. An axe leans nearby, heavy and silent. A rope sways gently in the wind, creaking against the beam above. The smell hits you, iron and salt, raw and unmistakable. You swallow hard, gripping the bucket and rag in your hands. Your task isn't glory or justice or spectacle. It's to erase the evidence of what just took place. You kneel, pressing the rag against the boards. The liquid spreads, smearing before it soaks in. No matter how hard you scrub, the stain clings. The wood seems to remember. You mutter under your breath, though no one hears. Perhaps it's better that way. After all, society celebrates the punishment, but it doesn't want to think about the cleanup. That job falls to you. Pieces remain, small, grim reminders. A scrap of cloth, a lock of hair, a tooth that slipped free at the final moment. You collect them carefully, your stomach twisting. Some go into the sack, others are buried in the pit behind the scaffold. You force yourself not to think about the lives attached to them. Feel too much and you won't finish. Feel nothing and you won't remain human. It's a thin line to walk, and your feet slip with every step. Historians still argue whether this role was carried out by lowly servants, criminals pressed into duty, or even apprentices of the executioner. The records blur, but the agreement is clear. Someone had to do it. Because justice demanded a spectacle, but society demanded the mess vanish quickly afterward. Out of sight, out of mind, you smirk bitterly. People today complain about cleaning up after pets, about spills on the kitchen floor. Imagine explaining your shift. Yes, I'm on mop duty. For the guillotine. No one would envy your broom. You stand wringing out the rag into the bucket, watching the water turn crimson. It feels endless. No matter how many times you scrub, the stains remain. Tomorrow, when another crowd gathers, they'll see only a clean stage. They'll cheer, jeer, eat snacks, gossip. None of them will think about you. Crouched here in the dark, wiping away the last show, your ears pick up faint footsteps. Someone approaches, a priest perhaps, or a guard. They nod but don't stop to help. No one ever does. This isn't work that earns gratitude, it earns avoidance. People turn their eyes away, as though looking at you might stain them too. The rope above creaks again in the wind and you glance up. The empty noose sways like a pendulum, reminding you that tomorrow it may be used again. And tomorrow you'll be back with your rag, your bucket, your silence. The square grows darker as clouds cover the moon. You pause, leaning on the mop, and breathe shallowly against the stench. The executioner gets remembered in chronicles, the condemned remembered in ballads. But you remain invisible, a ghost with a broom, tidying the stage for history's next cruel play. And so you keep working alone in the square, scrubbing until the boards creak clean, though they'll never truly forget. The crowd will return, the axe will fall, and once again, you'll follow after, wiping away the truth so the world can pretend justice leaves no trace. The blood-soaked boards fade beneath your hands, and suddenly the ground drops away entirely. You're standing on a swaying plank, the void yawning beneath your feet. Wind howls tugging at your clothes, carrying with it the dizzying scent of open air. Ropes creak, wood groans, and far below a river crashes against jagged rocks. Tonight you are a bridge builder, dangling between earth and sky, piecing together fragile paths across impossible heights. You grip the rope railing, knuckles white. It trembles beneath your fingers, as if mocking your need for stability. Another builder shouts something, but the wind steals his words. He hammers a peg into the timber, each strike echoing far too loudly in the vastness. You force yourself not to look down. But of course you do. The river churns below, frothing white where boulders tear the current apart. You imagine falling, limbs flailing, air screaming past your ears, until the water swallows you whole. You blink hard and drag your eyes back up. Focus, or you won't live long enough to finish this span. Bridge building wasn't just craft. It was survival. Empires demanded roads, roads demanded crossings, and crossings demanded sacrifice. From the rope suspension bridges of the Inca to the stone arches of Rome, each structure stood on the backs of men who dangled above death to set every plank, every stone. Historians still debate how many fell, how many bodies rivers claimed without record. The monuments survive. Their builders don't. You inch forward, balancing a beam across your shoulder. It's heavy, pressing down with each shaky step. Sweat slicks your palms, making the rope slippery. You mutter a quick prayer, though you're not sure if it's to guard the wind or the wood itself. You lay the beam down, aligning it with the others, and the bridge stretches a little farther toward the opposite bank. Progress. But progress here always tastes like fear. You smirk nervously. People today complain about working overtime or having to take Zoom calls from their couch. Imagine explaining your workday. Yes, I dangled from a rope hundreds of feet up, carrying lumber while birds circled below me waiting to see if I'd fall. Suddenly, the annoyance of email spam doesn't seem so dramatic. A gust slams into you, whipping your hair across your face. The bridge sways violently, ropes creaking like groaning bones. Your stomach flips and you drop flat, clinging to the planks. Your heart hammers against your ribs louder than the wind. Around you, other workers grab desperately, tools clattering into the abyss. The bridge steadies slowly, reluctantly. You stand again, legs shaking. This is the rhythm of the job. Swing, sway, survive. You drive a peg into the timber, the hammer's vibration rattling up your arm. Each strike feels like a heartbeat, keeping you alive as much as it keeps the bridge together. The wood splinters, dust spraying into the wind, vanishing instantly. You wonder if your body would vanish just as quickly should you fall, another nameless offering to progress. And yet there's a strange beauty here. From this height, the world looks vast and endless. Forests stretch in waves of green. The river glitters like molten silver. Mountains cut the horizon. For a fleeting moment, you feel powerful, shaping paths across nature's barriers, bending earth to human will. Then the rope creaks again, and you're just a trembling body on a plank, begging the wind for mercy. The sun sinks lower, painting the sky with fire. Shadows stretch across the unfinished bridge, and the air grows colder. You know the work won't end. Darkness is just another obstacle. Lanterns will be lit, ropes will be checked, beams will be carried, because the world needs crossings, and bridges don't build themselves. So you step forward once more, hammer in hand, rope biting into your palms, heart pounding with every sway. Each plank you lay is a promise that someone someday will cross safely where you once dangled in fear. They'll never know your name. They'll never know the wind that almost carried you away. But the bridge will stand, silent testimony to your courage and your peril. And so you keep building, suspended between sky and river, carving paths where none existed before, one trembling step at a time. The churned mud of the battlefield dissolves, and soon you're standing ankle-deep in a marsh. The water is murky, thick with reeds, buzzing with clouds of insects that dive relentlessly for your skin. The ground squelches under every step, threatening to suck your boots right off. In your hand is a small bucket, and tied to your waist a ragged pouch. You shiver, not from the chill of the water, but from what you know is coming. Tonight you are a leech collector. You wade slowly, disturbing the surface. The ripples spread outward, and soon you feel it, a slippery brush against your leg. Then another. Within moments, black shapes wriggle up from the water, attaching themselves to your skin. Their mouths latch, and you feel the faint sting, like dozens of needles pricking all at once before the suction begins. Blood drains, slow but steady, into their slimy bodies. You grimace, reaching down to pluck one free. The creature resists, stretching grotesquely before it tears loose. You drop it into the bucket, where it writhes among its brothers. The sound is faint, wet, unsettling. The bucket will need to be full by day's end. Physicians and barbers pay well for these creatures, convinced they balance humors and heal disease. To them, leeches are medicine. To you, they are parasites, both on your blood and on your life. Historians note that leech collectors were often the poor, the desperate, or even children. Their small bodies made easy bait. They stood in ponds for hours, shivering as leeches gorged themselves. Many fainted from blood loss. Others simply never left the water. Records are scarce, but the scars on survivors spoke volumes. You smirk faintly through clenched teeth. People today pay for spa treatments, with little fish nibbling at their toes, calling it relaxation. Imagine telling them your spa involves a swamp, pints of blood, and a bucket of worms clinging to your flesh. 5-star review? Probably not. You shift your weight, but the mud clings tighter and more leeches attach. Some wriggle up beneath your clothes, finding tender places that make you hiss in pain. You can't strip here, you'd lose too much blood too fast. Instead, you grit your teeth and wait until they're swollen enough to pluck. That's the trick, patience. Tear them off too soon and they bleed you worse. Wait long enough and you can drop them, fat and squirming, into the bucket like ripe fruit. The buzzing of flies grows louder, mingling with the gurgle of the swamp. Your vision swims slightly, head light from the constant drain. You press a hand to your temple, forcing yourself upright. There's no fainting here. Faint, and you'll collapse into the muck and the swamp will feast until nothing is left. By the time you stagger to the shore, your bucket sloshes with writhing bodies, black and glistening. Your legs are streaked with blood, dotted with angry red welts. The wounds will fester if you're unlucky. Infection takes collectors as easily as blood loss. Still, the bucket is full, and that means coin. You sit briefly on the bank, catching your breath, watching the water ripple where more leeches wait. Tomorrow you'll wade again, and the day after, and the day after that. The marsh is endless, the demand unceasing. Physicians will bleed patients for centuries, convinced it cures fevers and spirits alike. And you will keep feeding the trade, 1 pint of your own blood at a time. And so you stand, bucket in hand, legs trembling but still moving. Because history demands its remedies, and you are the one who gathers them, drained slowly by the very cure you deliver. The marshy stink fades, replaced by the dry dust of a road stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The air is hot, the ground cracked, and your chest already heaves before you've taken a step. In your hand is a small satchel, tied tightly with string. Inside is a scroll bearing a lord's seal. Orders, news, or secrets too urgent for anyone but you to carry. Tonight you are a messenger runner. You set off, feet pounding against the dirt. The rhythm builds quickly, thud, 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 as your body falls into its brutal pace. The sun beats down, sweat pouring into your eyes, but there is no slowing. Messages mean life or death, war or peace, fortune or ruin. And unlike horses which belong to nobles, you have only your legs. You are the engine of empire, carrying words faster than the wind can whisper them. The dust rises with every stride, choking your throat. You cough, spit, but keep moving. Your lungs burn, your calves knot, your back screams. But you clutch the satchel tighter, as though the parchment inside is the only thing keeping you upright. Historians write of great networks, Persian couriers, Incan shaskis, Greek heralds. Some argue which system was fastest, which lasted longest. None of them write about the blisters on your feet, or the way your vision swims when you run too far without water. You smirk grimly. People today jog with cushioned shoes, water bottles, music in their ears. They complain if the treadmill breaks. Imagine telling them your workout. 30 miles across rough ground, barefoot, with wolves sniffing the trail and a spear-wielding enemy at the finish line. That puts marathon medals in perspective. Your breath comes ragged now, rasping in your chest. The sun blazes, unrelenting. You glance at the horizon, but it doesn't move closer. The road stretches like a punishment, each step another toll. You remember tricks. Pace your breathing, focus on the rhythm, ignore the pain. You repeat it like a prayer. Step, breath, carry, deliver. The dangers aren't just exhaustion. Bandits lurk on roadsides, their eyes hungry for coin or secrets. Dogs chase, snapping at your heels. Storms break suddenly, drenching you in mud, turning the road into a trap. Some runners collapsed mid-route, their bodies found days later, parchment still clutched in stiff hands. No tombs honored them. Only silence did. Your chest burns now, each inhale shallow, sharp. You stagger, knees nearly buckling, but force yourself forward. The satchel feels heavier than iron, though it's only paper inside. Sweat blinds you, salt stinging your eyes. Your whole world narrows to the dust beneath your feet and the pounding in your skull. At last, in the distance, you see the watchtower. Relief surges, faint but enough to carry you the final stretch. You stumble into the square, collapsing before the guard. Hands lift the satchel from you, breaking the seal. They nod, satisfied, already reading the words you nearly died to carry, and you. You lie on the stones, chest heaving, vision flickering. No one asks your name. No one thanks you. The message matters, not the messenger. Tomorrow another runner will take another scroll down another endless road, and so you breathe, shallow and ragged, knowing your body has been spent for ink and parchment. History moves forward on your legs, even as they finally give out beneath you. The dust of the road fades, and suddenly the air grows thick and strange, tinged with a metallic tang that makes your tongue ache. The walls around you glisten not with crystals of salt or veins of coal, but with a reddish shimmer that almost seems to pulse. You grip a crude pickaxe and your stomach twists as the fumes sting your nose, leaving a bitter taste that feels wrong. Tonight you are a miner of mercury, The rock here isn't ordinary. Bright red cinnabar veins run through the stone, beautiful in a way that hides their cruelty. You swing the pick, and shards splinter off, sending dust into the air. Your chest burns instantly. Each breath feels heavier, poisoned. The dust is mercury sulfide, and though no one in your time names it properly, your body knows its danger. Your head throbs, your vision blurs, your hands tremble faintly even before hours pass. You crouch to gather the ore, the red dust clinging to your skin like paint. It seeps into your pores, staining everything it touches. Sweat mixes with it, running in dark streaks down your arms. You wipe your face, but that only smears more across your lips. A bitter tang fills your mouth. Your teeth ache. Some miners lose theirs altogether, the poison rotting them away. Historians still argue about how much the workers understood. Some say they thought cinnabar had mystical properties, used in pigments and even medicines. Others believe they knew enough to fear it, but had no choice. What's certain is that mercury mines were death sentences. The fumes from heating cinnabar to extract quicksilver destroyed lungs, rotted minds, and shortened lives to a fraction. Few miners survived long enough to grow old. You smirk bitterly through the haze. People today panic about a broken thermometer, spilling a drop of mercury. Imagine explaining your job. Yes, I inhale the stuff daily, scrape it with bare hands, and sleep in the fumes. Occupational hazard. The modern safety inspector would faint on the spot. The tunnel grows hotter as torches flicker, smoke curling into the already toxic air. You cough violently, spitting dark phlegm onto the ground. Your chest rattles, but the overseer shouts for more ore. The cinnabar is valuable, painted onto palaces, gilding statues, even used in alchemical pursuits. To kings and scholars it is beauty. To you it is poison. Your hands shake as you lift another stone. At first you think it's exhaustion, but the trembling doesn't stop. It lingers even when you set the pick down. Some miners' bodies shake uncontrollably, their minds clouding into madness. You've heard stories, men laughing at nothing, weeping uncontrollably, wandering the tunnels until they collapsed. Mercury doesn't just kill, it unravels you piece by piece, and yet you keep swinging, because wages, however small, mean bread for your family, because refusing means punishment or worse. The mine consumes men as surely as the fumes consume lungs. Your vision swims as you stumble toward the cart, or clattering inside. The cinnabar glows dully in the torchlight, almost mocking, beautiful, deadly, eternal. You smirk faintly despite the pounding in your skull. People will admire the rich red of palaces and frescoes, never knowing that each pigment was mixed with the breath and blood of men like you. You stagger, chest burning, head light. The overseer shouts again, the tunnel echoing with his voice. You grip your pickaxe tighter, force your trembling body upright, and swing once more into the red wall. And so you carry on, poisoned slowly with every breath, carving wealth for others, while your own life leaches away in invisible fumes. The cinnabar glitters eternal. You fade, forgotten. The glittering red dust fades, and suddenly your nose recoils before your eyes even open. The air is thick, humid, and foul in a way that feels alive. You glance down and there it is. A wooden bucket heavy with a sloshing cargo you'd rather not name. A long pole balances across your shoulders, two brimming pails swinging at either end. Tonight you are a night soil collector, hauling the waste of an entire city. The streets are dark, lanterns flickering faintly above, but you know the path by smell alone. Every step sloshes the buckets, threatening to spill across your back. You shift carefully, the wood biting into your collarbones. The stench clings to you like a curse, pungent, sour, unmistakable. It doesn't wash off. It seeps into your skin, your hair, even your dreams. You pause at a doorway where a family has left their chamber pot full to the brim. You grit your teeth, empty it into your bucket and move on. Door after door, pot after pot. By dawn, the load will be heavy enough to bow your spine. And then, out beyond the walls, you'll dump it into pits or spread it on fields as fertilizer. Civilization's crops grow from your nightly labor. People feast on bread, never thinking that the wheat was fed by the waste you carried. Historians note that night soil collectors were both vital and despised. Cities couldn't function without them, but no one wanted to stand near them. They worked in the shadows, unseen, avoided. Some towns even required them to walk at night, so the respectable citizens wouldn't have to endure the sight or smell of their labor. You're invisible until someone complains. You smirk bitterly. People today gripe about taking out the trash or flushing toilets that clog. Imagine explaining your job. Yes, I carry buckets of human waste across cobbled streets all night long. No plumber's bill has ever smelled this bad. The danger isn't just disgust. Waste carries disease, and each splash threatens infection. One slip on whetstone, one stumble, and the contents could soak you through. Some collectors collapsed from fever, their bodies joining the pits they once filled. Others simply disappeared, buried under the weight of their own work. You trudge on, the buckets swaying, your shoulders screaming. Stray dogs bark. Children giggle cruelly from windows, covering their noses as you pass. The insults sting, but the coins at the end of the route are all that matter. Coin buys bread. Bread keeps you alive for one more night, and yet in this filth there is strange power. Farmers pay for the waste. Fields demand it. Without you, crops wither. Without you, disease piles in alleys until whole towns collapse. You are the unseen artery, carrying the city's refuse out of its body. Ugly, yes. Necessary always. The moon dips low, and at last you reach the edge of the fields. You heave the buckets down, tipping their contents into the trench. The stench rises in a wave, nearly knocking you to your knees. You gag spit, but finish the job. The buckets are empty now. Light again, but your body isn't. It carries the weight of disgust, exhaustion, and the knowledge that tomorrow the pots will be full again. And so you shoulder the yoke once more, turning back toward the city. The streets will be dark, the windows shuttered, the insults quieter. But the work never ends, because history's palaces and fields stand not just on stone and sweat, but on the silent, stinking labor of those who carried away what no one else dared touch. The reeking buckets vanish, but the stench in the air doesn't improve, it only changes. Now it's the sour, sweet smell of sickness, of bodies left too long in narrow streets. You stand in a heavy robe, waxed against moisture, leather gloves pulled tight over your hands. A mask covers your face, its long beak stuffed with herbs and spices. The air inside is hot, stifling, each breath filtered through crushed flowers and vinegar-soaked cloth. Tonight you are a plague doctor. You step into the alley, the beak jutting forward, the cane in your hand tapping the stones. People shrink back at the sight of you. To them you are both savior and omen, healer and harbinger of death. Wherever you appear, the plague has already taken root. Your mask hides your face, but not the truth. You are afraid just as they are. The herbs may soothe your nose, but they cannot stop the invisible sickness slipping through the air. A door creaks open, and a desperate family calls you inside. The room is dim, stinking of sweat and rot. A patient lies on a straw mattress, their skin blotched black and purple, their breathing shallow and ragged. You crouch, examining the buboes swelling under their arms. Your gloves are slick with sweat, but you dare not remove them. Instead, you prod gently with your cane, too frightened to lean too close. You murmur a prayer, though you know prayers don't cure disease. Your treatments are crude. Leeches, bloodletting poultices of herbs. Smoke waved through the air. Some say fumigation helps. Others suggest lancing the buboes to let the poison flow. Historians still debate whether plague doctors truly saved lives, or simply offered comfort while death took its course. What's certain is that most patients didn't recover, and many doctors themselves never survived long. Inside the beaked mask, your own breath fogs, hot and suffocating. You cough and the sound echoes back at you. Was it just a cough, or was it the first sign? Fear gnaws at you constantly, whispering with every patient you touch. Some colleagues fled towns altogether. Others stayed and fell, their masks removed to reveal faces already grey. You smirk faintly, though it's bitter. People today complain about wearing thin cloth masks for a few hours. Try strapping a leather beak to your face all day, stuffed with thyme and roses, while you poke at dying bodies. You'd trade places in a heartbeat. You stand again, the patient groaning faintly. Their family looks at you, eyes pleading for hope you cannot give. You shake your head slowly, the beak bobbing with the motion. The sobs that follow are muffled, resigned. You step back into the street, your cane tapping softly, the weight of their despair heavier than your bag of tools. The city feels like a graveyard. Bells toll constantly. Carts creak under loads of bodies, the air itself tastes of fear. You walk among it all, faceless, voiceless, carrying your fragile barrier of leather and herbs. You are meant to be protector, but you feel more like witness. Watching a tide you cannot stop, and so you continue, step by step, mask suffocating, gloves slick, cane tapping. The plague spreads faster than you can walk, and history will remember your image long after your body is forgotten. The beak, the robe, the silhouette in the mist. a symbol of death disguised as healing, because in the end your labor is not just treatment, it is presence. And in a world drowning in fear, sometimes presence is all that's left to give. The heavy mask dissolves, and the air shifts to the dry dust of a long road once more. This time you're not running alone, you're trudging beside animals. A line of mules stretches ahead and behind, their flanks already slick with sweat, their eyes dull with weariness. Leather harnesses creak, ropes pull taut, and every beast groans under the load of sacks, barrels, and weapons strapped to its back. At the front of the line, your voice cracks as you shout and tug, urging them forward. Tonight, you are a mule driver. The army moves around you, columns of men marching, banners fluttering, armor clanking, but the soldiers march unburdened compared to you and your beasts. They carry only what they must. The mules and you bear the rest. Food, tents, weapons, loot. Even the occasional wounded man slumped half-conscious across a pack. Without your caravan, the army stalls, starves, collapses. You are the backbone, though no one sings songs about your cracked voice or aching shoulders. Dust coats your tongue, drying your throat until swallowing feels like chewing sand. The sun beats down and the road seems endless. You prod a mule's flank with a stick, and it stumbles forward reluctantly. Some drivers whisper encouragement, others curse, some swing their whips. The animals plod on, stoic and suffering. You can't help but feel kinship with them. Both of you beasts of burden, driven forward by someone else's war. Historians sometimes write of armies' glory, their discipline, their victories. Rarely do they mention the mule drivers trudging behind, sweating in silence. Yet without you, supplies would never reach the front and the glorious charges would starve before they began. Some chroniclers note whole armies collapsing when their mule trains were lost to raids or exhaustion. You smirk faintly. Imagine explaining that to a modern general. Your strategy is fine, but without Ted the mule, you're doomed. The dangers are constant. The road twists along cliffs where one misstep means a toppled mule and shattered cargo. Bandits lie in wait, knowing that slow-moving trains are easy prey. Worse, when the army loses, mule drivers are often abandoned, left to fate. Soldiers retreat. You are stuck with stubborn animals that won't run. Many drivers died trampled, captured, or crushed under their own loads. You wipe sweat from your brow, your shirt clinging. The stench of beasts is overwhelming. Manure, sweat, leather, dust. It clings to you, as much a uniform as any soldier's armor. Flies swarm constantly, biting your arms, your neck. You swat them, swearing under your breath. Still, there are moments of grim humor. One mule suddenly stops, refusing to move no matter how hard you tug. You sigh, muttering that he has more sense than half the generals. The soldiers nearby chuckle, and for a moment the burden feels lighter. Laughter is rare but necessary. The day drags on, every step heavier, until at last the column halts. You collapse against a cart, too exhausted to eat, your body shaking from strain. The mules lower their heads, chewing at sparse grass, as battered as you. Tomorrow the march continues, and the road will stretch even longer. And so you sit in the fading light, listening to the beasts huff and the soldiers snore. Your work will never be remembered in songs or painted in murals. But without you, the grand armies of history would have been little more than hungry men on dusty roads. You, the mule, the burdens, you are the quiet gears that turned empires forward. The dusty road fades into silence. You open your eyes to find yourself standing on wooden planks, the rough boards of a scaffold, raised above a restless crowd. Their voices buzz below, some jeering, some murmuring, all waiting. In your hand is a heavy blade, its edge glinting in the pale morning light. A block stands at the center, stained dark with years of use. Tonight, you are the executioner. The condemned is brought forward, stumbling, eyes wild. Chains clink as the guards push him down. You grip your weapon tighter, your palms slick with sweat inside your gloves. The crowd watches every movement, every breath. To them, this is both justice and spectacle, a grim theater where you are the unwilling star. You clear your throat, but no one hears your doubts behind the hood that hides your face. The robe is heavy, stifling, the mask suffocating. You wear it not just to shield your identity, but to protect yourself from the stares, the hatred, the curses, the pleas. For some, you are a necessary servant of the law. For others, you are a butcher. Historians argue endlessly about executioners, feared, shunned, sometimes even wealthy, yet isolated. Children whispered about their houses. Neighbors avoided their touch. You lived among society, but never truly in it. You raise the blade, muscles straining. The weapon is not light. It's iron, honed sharp but still unwieldy. One stroke is expected, demanded. More than one, and the shame is yours to carry. You steady your breath, focus on the target, and swing. The thud echoes like a drumbeat, final and heavy. The crowd erupts, some cheering, some sobbing, some turning away. For them, it's over. For you, it lingers. You smirk faintly, though grimly. People today binge true crime shows for entertainment. Imagine explaining that your job is to perform the final act of those stories, live, while hundreds watch. Not a Netflix subscription, just a hood, a blade, and a stomach strong enough to keep steady. Your shoulders ache as you lower the weapon. Blood stains the wood, trickles across the grooves carved by countless others before. The guards drag the body away, and the crowd begins to disperse, their hunger satisfied for the day. But your hunger is gone. Food will taste of iron tonight and perhaps tomorrow too. It always does. The worst part isn't the blade. It's the waiting. Between executions, you live in uneasy silence, shunned by neighbors, whispered about in markets. Children cross the street. Wives clutch their husbands tighter. Priests avoid your eyes. You are useful yet untouchable. When you walk, doors close. When you speak, voices fall quiet. Still you continue. Because the law demands it, the rulers decree it, and someone must hold the blade. Justice, whether fair or not, flows through your arms. You are not the judge, not the jury. You are the hand. And hands rarely earn gratitude. The scaffold creaks beneath your boots as you step down, blade heavy at your side. The square is nearly empty now, the echo of cries fading into quiet. You breathe out slowly, though the hood hides your face. Another life taken, another scar on your soul. Tomorrow there may be another, and the day after another still. And so you walk away nameless, faceless, carrying the weight of death. The crowd forgets quickly, but you remember every face, every final breath. History calls rulers merciful or cruel, but their mercy or cruelty always came through your blade. The scaffold dissolves into silence, and suddenly you're indoors, hunched over a desk lit by a single flickering candle. The air smells of parchment, ink, and melted wax. Your back aches from hours of sitting on a hard bench, your fingers stained black, cramped around a quill that feels heavier than iron after endless strokes. Tonight you are a scribe. The work seems simple at first glance, copying words line after line, page after page. But the strain is relentless. Your eyes blur as you squint at faded manuscripts, the letters dancing in the candlelight. Each mistake is disaster. One misplaced stroke, one blot of ink, and an entire parchment may be ruined. Vellum is expensive, sometimes scraped clean to reuse, but every slip earns a reprimand, sometimes worse. You force your hand steady, though your wrist trembles from fatigue. The room is cold, yet sweat beads on your brow. The candle sputters, threatening to plunge you into darkness. You lean closer, straining to see the tiny curves of a script older than your memory. Hours pass like molasses, every second dragging across your mind. The silence is suffocating, broken only by the scratching of quills from others in the scriptorium. Dozens of scribes bent like you, heads bowed, eyes dimming. It's less a workplace and more a graveyard of sight. Historians marvel at illuminated manuscripts, brilliant gold leaf, swirling vines, painted saints. They call them treasures of culture, jewels of knowledge. Few mention the hunched men who bled their eyes dry to create them. Many scribes went blind from the strain, their vision narrowed to shadows before middle age. Some lost their sanity, the repetition grinding them into muttering shells. You smirk faintly. People today complain about typing emails for hours or staring at spreadsheets. Imagine explaining your job. Yes, I spend 12 hours hunched over goatskin, painting tiny letters with a bird feather, until my vision collapses. Suddenly, blue light from a laptop doesn't sound so cruel. Your fingers ache, stiffening as ink dries into cracks of skin. You blow gently on the parchment, watching the wet lines shimmer, praying the candle doesn't drip wax across your work. You shift in your seat, but relief never comes. The pain in your spine is permanent, a slow twist that makes standing upright impossible after years of bending. Sometimes, the monotony breaks, an illuminated capital letter, a chance to paint with color instead of black. For a moment you lift your head, adding a swirl of gold or a dragon's tail curling into the margins. Beauty fleeting, hidden in the grind. Perhaps centuries from now someone will marvel at this flourish, never knowing you slipped it in just to keep yourself awake. The candle burns lower, shadows creeping across the walls. Your eyes sting, raw from staring too long. You blink hard, willing the blur away, but the words ripple regardless. Your breath catches with a faint laugh. Historians still debate whether scribes whispered to themselves to stay sane. You know the truth. Of course you whisper. If you don't, the silence will consume you. The bell finally tolls. Work ceases. Quills are set down, parchments stacked. You stretch, but the relief is painful. Joints cracking, muscles stiff as stone. Tomorrow it begins again. More lines, more ink, more silent hours gnawing at your eyes. And so you walk away from the desk, your candle nearly gone, your sight dimming. The world praises the words you preserve, but it forgets the body you spend to preserve them. Your ink, your time, your sight, all sacrificed to keep history's voice alive. The quiet scratching of quills fades, and suddenly your world rocks with the rhythm of water slamming against wood. The air is heavy with salt, sweat, and the stench of unwashed bodies packed too close together. Your wrists ache from iron cuffs. Your hands blister around a long wooden oar, and the overseer's whip cracks above your head. Tonight you are a galley oarsman. You sit on a hard bench, shoulder to shoulder with other men, the oar so long it takes 3 of you to move it. The drum begins, boom, boom, boom. The beat sets the pace, and your body obeys. You pull, heave, push over and over, the motion hammering into your muscles until they burn. The rhythm is endless. The drum never tires, even when you do. Sweat pours down your back, soaking your rags. The air is stifling, trapped below deck with only slivers of sunlight cutting through cracks in the hull. Your lungs strain against the stink, salt, mildew, vomit, and blood. You cough, but there is no pause. The overseer shouts, the whip lashes, and you lean into the oar again. Historians note that many galley oarsmen were slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals. Some were chained for life, condemned to row until death. Others were free men desperate for coin, trapped by hunger rather than shackles. But whether bound by law or poverty, the suffering was the same. Disease spread like fire in these cramped holds, and few rowers survived long voyages. You smirk bitterly. People today complain about a crowded subway ride or a packed airplane. Imagine telling them, try spending years chained to a bench, rowing until your hands bleed, with only seawater for air conditioning. Suddenly, a middle seat doesn't seem so bad. The oar grows heavier with every pull. Blisters rip open, your palms slick with blood. The salt in the air sears the wounds, but you grip tighter, knowing that letting go means the lash. Your shoulders throb, your back screams. Your legs cramp in the narrow space beneath you. The pain becomes constant, a companion as loyal as the drum. Outside, sailors cheer as the ship surges forward, cutting waves with its speed. They toast victories, trade goods, sing songs. None of that belongs to you. You are the engine, unseen and unnamed, pulling glory through pain. When the ship captures prizes or carries kings, your part is forgotten. Only the lash remembers you. The drum quickens suddenly, an enemy spotted. Panic floods your chest, but the rhythm drives you faster. The oar slams forward and back, your body convulsing with the pace. Your breath tears from your throat, vision dimming at the edges. Some rowers collapse, but the chains hold them upright, their lifeless arms still tied to the oar. The rest of you keep pulling, dragging the dead along until there's time to throw them overboard. The clash of battle thunders above, swords and shouts, but down here nothing changes. Row, row, row until the drum stops. Only then does silence return, and you sag forward, trembling, too weak to lift your head. The overseer steps over fallen bodies, nodding only when the ship holds steady again, and so you remain, chained to wood and water, your body nothing but fuel for someone else's journey. The sea roars outside, free and endless, but you are shackled to its rhythm. History remembers the ships, the captains, the victories. It forgets you, the heartbeat of oars pounding in the dark. The pounding of oars fades, and now the world presses in with silence and weight. You crouch in a narrow shaft, the ceiling low enough to scrape your back, the walls damp and suffocating. The only light comes from a flickering oil lamp, its smoke curling into stale air already too thin to breathe. In your hands is a crude tool, more like a sharpened stick than a pick, and every strike echoes like thunder in the tomb you're digging. Tonight you are a tunnel digger. The earth presses from all sides, damp soil crumbling at the edges, threatening collapse. You scrape, dig, shovel, push, inching forward. Sweat drips into your eyes, but there's no room to wipe it away. The heat is oppressive, but the air feels cold at the same time, thin, heavy, wrong. Each breath is a struggle, as though the darkness itself is filling your lungs. You pause to listen. Above you, faint vibrations, footsteps, voices, the shifting weight of a city or fortress you're tunneling beneath. Some diggers were soldiers, sent to undermine walls in war. Others were laborers building aqueducts, tombs, or mines. All shared the same risk. The earth doesn't forgive. A single crack overhead, and tons of stone and soil could collapse, burying you alive before you have time to scream. Historians still debate how many men vanished this way, unrecorded, unnamed, their bones swallowed by the tunnels they carved. You smirk faintly, though your chest burns. People today complain about a windowless office or a basement that smells damp. Imagine telling them, yes, I spend 12 hours underground with no light, hacking through rock while the ceiling tries to crush me. Suddenly, fluorescent lights don't sound so bad. You dig again, every strike weaker than the last. The tunnel must keep going. The wall must fall, the channel must reach the city. The tomb must be finished. Purpose weighs as heavily as soil. Your fingers blister. Your arms tremble, your back screams. You breathe shallowly, conserving what little air remains. Every cough rattles painfully, each inhale thinner than the last. The lamp sputters, the shadows lengthen, thickening until they nearly consume the flame. Your heart hammers. If the lamp dies, you are blind, trapped in a blackness so complete it feels like drowning. You tap the base, coaxing the flame to rise. For now it holds, but you know it won't last forever. Nothing down here does. The ground shifts faintly and your stomach knots. You freeze, listening. Dirt trickles down, pattering softly against your shoulders. You brace, whispering a prayer until the sound stops. Not this time, but someday, perhaps tomorrow, the earth will win. Still you move forward, inch by inch, strike by strike. Not because you want to, but because someone above demands it. A lord, a captain, a master. You dig because they command. And you endure because there is no other choice, and so you push on deeper into the dark, the lamp flickering, the air growing thinner. Your body aches, your lungs burn, but your hands refuse to stop. History builds its cities, its wars, its wonders on your hidden labor. No one will remember your name, only the tunnels you carved in silence. The air grows softer now, fading around you like a sigh. The darkness blurs, the weight lifts, and the story slows its heartbeat. You've walked through smoke, salt, blood, and dust. You've carried burdens no one thanks, borne scars no one recalls. And yet here you are, breathing still, resting at last. The voices of the past grow quieter, fading like echoes down a long corridor. Your eyes grow heavy, your muscles loose. You've earned this rest more than anyone. The brutal jobs are behind you now, left in the pages of history, where they can no longer touch you. Breathe deeply. The air is cool now, gentle. The lamp in the tunnel dims, but in its place rises the soft glow of safety. The stories soften, their edges blur until all that remains is calm. Let the images dissolve. Let the noise quiet. Let your thoughts drift with the slow rhythm of sleep, steady and safe, end of script. Sweet dreams.